Final Fantasy 15. This game definitely got its fair share of criticism when it first launched, but honestly, it's such a gem once you dig into it. A lot of the hate stemmed from expectations, especially from longtime fans of the Final Fantasy series. People wanted it to be a certain way, and when it turned out to be a bit different, it threw everyone off. One of the big controversies was about the story and how parts of it felt, well, incomplete. A lot of fans felt like there were pieces missing, and to be fair, they're kind of right. Square Enix did add DLCs later to fill in some of the gaps, which helped a lot, but I get why people were frustrated. And then there's the combat system, which definitely divided people. It's way more action-oriented than older Final Fantasy games, which threw some fans off. Instead of the traditional turn-based style, you're zipping around the battlefield, warping in and out of combat, and timing your attacks in real time. Personally, I think it's a blast. It feels fast, intense, and once you get the hang of it, there's a real flow to the battles that's so satisfying. Plus, you get to use all these cool weapons and powers, and switching between them mid-fight keeps things exciting. I get that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it brings a fresh energy to the series, and if you go in with an open mind, it's a lot of fun. Final Fantasy 15 gives you this huge, open world to explore, and it's stunning. You're cruising around in your car, the regalia, discovering gorgeous landscapes, stopping at outposts, and finding hidden treasures along the way. Guardians of the Galaxy. This one's interesting because it kind of had everything going for it, but for some reason, it didn't hit as big as people expected at launch. I mean, you've got one of the most beloved Marvel teams, a great developer, Eidos Montreal, and a focus on single-player storytelling, which is something a lot of people were craving, but when it dropped, it just didn't make the splash it should have. So, what happened? Well, for one, people were still feeling the aftershocks of Marvel's Avengers. That game didn't really land well with fans, and it made a lot of people skeptical about Guardians. Folks saw another Marvel game and thought, here we go again with another live service mess. Even though Guardians of the Galaxy is nothing like that. It's a totally single-player, story-driven experience with zero microtransactions or live service elements. But it got lumped in with Avengers, and that hurt its initial reception. Now let's talk about the controversial stuff. The characters. Some fans were thrown off because the game's versions of Star-Lord, Gamora, and the rest of the crew didn't look or sound like their MCU counterparts. If you're used to Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, or Zoe Saldana as Gamora, it might take you a second to adjust to these new interpretations, but once you do, you realize they're actually great. The writing is sharp, the dialogue is hilarious, and the chemistry between the Guardians is spot on. It feels like you're right there with them, and the banter between the team is one of the best parts of the game. The combat also got mixed reactions. Some people found it a little chaotic at first. Avowed. If you've ever wished to dive headfirst into a world where magic feels tangible, choices truly matter, and exploration is practically begging you to get lost in it, this game is exactly what you're looking for. Now, here's the thing about Avowed. It's set in the same universe as Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity series, but don't let that scare you if you've never touched those games before. You don't need prior knowledge to jump in and enjoy what Avowed has to offer. Think of it as a new doorway into this rich world, where you're given the freedom to shape your adventure the way you want. It's welcoming, accessible, and absolutely bursting with lore for those who want to dig deeper. One of the coolest parts of Avowed is how it handles magic and combat. This isn't just about flinging fireballs or swinging swords. You feel a genuine sense of connection to your arsenal. Whether you're crafting devastating spell combinations or making use of more traditional weaponry, the game makes every action feel purposeful. It's all about giving you tools to tackle challenges your way. You want to go in like a one-person army. Prefer something sneakier or more methodical. That's on the table too. The game doesn't just hand you decisions. It throws you into situations that make you think. You're not just clicking dialogue options. You're shaping relationships, influencing factions, and, in many cases, questioning your own moral compass. It's like the game is daring you to leave your mark on its world. Exploration is another huge win here. Prey. This is one of those games that should have been a hit, but for whatever reason didn't catch on like it deserved to. And honestly, it's a real shame. Now, the controversy with Prey, it starts with the name. A lot of fans of the original Prey from 2006 were upset that Arcane's game had the same title, but was basically a completely different thing. There was no connection to the original Prey, no Tommy, no spirit abilities, none of that. So, Right off the bat, some people were mad because they were expecting a sequel or continuation of the original, but Arcane went in a totally different direction. But if you put that aside and judge Prey for what it is, it's actually one of the best immersive sims out there. Arcane is known for crafting amazing worlds. The level design is just insane. You've got all these interconnected areas, and the way you can approach situations, whether you want to sneak, hack, fight, or even turn into a coffee cup. Yeah, that's a thing. Gives you so much freedom. And let's talk about the Typhon, the alien enemies in the game. The mimics are probably the most memorable. These little guys can disguise themselves as everyday objects, so every time you walk into a room, you're second-guessing everything. Is that chair just a chair, or is it about to jump at me? It adds this constant tension that makes the whole experience so gripping. Combat can be pretty tough, but it's rewarding. The glue gun is such a cool weapon. It's not just for fighting, but you can use it to create platforms and block hazards. Lies of P. It's one of those games that takes a classic story and flips it into something totally unexpected. I mean, a dark, twisted version of Pinocchio? Who saw that coming? From the moment I started playing, I knew this wasn't going to be the fairy tale we all grew up with. Instead, it throws you into this grim, steampunk world where everything feels eerie and dangerous. The atmosphere is on point. There's this constant tension in the air, like you're never quite safe, even when you're just walking through a quiet alley. The game wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and if you've played Bloodborne or Dark Souls, you'll feel right at home here. The combat is that familiar, deliberate style, where every swing of your weapon matters, and timing is everything. But Lies of P adds its own twist with the weapon customization system. You can mix and match blades and handles to create your own combos, which gives you a ton of freedom to experiment with different builds. It's honestly so satisfying when you find a combination that just clicks with your playstyle. The enemies are no joke. Each one feels like a real threat, and you can't just rush in and expect to button mash your way through. You've got to be patient, learn their patterns, and strike when the moment is right. And the bosses? They're some of the most intense encounters I've had in a while. Every time I thought I was getting the hang of things, a new boss would come along and completely wreck me. But in the best way. It's that feeling of frustration followed by pure joy when you finally take them down. If you're into challenging combat, Lies of P is definitely worth your time. NIER Automata. One of those games that didn't exactly explode onto the scene when it first launched, but ended up becoming a cult classic. If you've never played it, at first glance it might seem like just another action RPG. But this game much more than that. It's one of those titles that, once you dive in, completely pulls you in with its depth themes and that emotional roller coaster of a story. But here's the thing. When it first came out, not a lot of people were talking about it. Sure, it had fans, but it didn't immediately blow up like some big AAA game. Part of that might be because the original was kind of niche and never really became a mainstream hit. So it had this uphill battle where people weren't sure if it was worth checking out. The game is weird. And I say that in the best possible way. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't give you a typical RPG experience, and the story can get really out there. You've got androids questioning the meaning of life, robots acting like humans, existential dread, and more than a few mind-bending plot twists. For some players, it was a little too philosophical. It's not afraid to get deep and ask big questions. And that can be off-putting if you're just looking for a straightforward action game. Then there's the whole multiple endings thing. It doesn't just have a single ending, it has like 26 of them. Now, most of those are joke endings, but to get the full story, you actually have to play through the game multiple times, seeing it from different perspectives. Some people love that. It's one of the game's strengths, but others didn't really want to replay the same sections to uncover the whole narrative. Little Nightmares 2. From the moment you step into its eerie, twisted world, you know you're in for a wild ride. If you enjoyed the first game, this one takes everything that made Little Nightmares so great and cranks it up a notch. The atmosphere is even more disturbing, the puzzles are more challenging, and the story, while still cryptic, pulls you deeper into this unsettling nightmare realm. You play as Mono, a new character, but you're not alone. 6. The protagonist from the first game is there with you, and having that companion dynamic adds a new layer to the gameplay. It's cool how the game makes you rely on each other to get through the twisted environments. You'll need to work together to solve puzzles, escape enemies, and navigate the nightmarish world around you. It's not a co-op game, but that teamwork element feels fresh and gives you a stronger emotional connection to the characters. The world in Little Nightmares 2 is just as unsettling as you'd expect. It's full of grotesque, distorted creatures that'll send shivers down your spine. The design of the enemies is one of the game's strongest points. Each one is creepier than the last, and the way they move and interact with the environment keeps you on edge the whole time. There's a constant feeling of being hunted, which makes every encounter feel tense and nerve-wracking. What's really great about the game is how it balances those intense chase scenes with quieter, more atmospheric moments. You'll go from heart-pounding sequences where you're being chased by terrifying enemies. Persona 5. Without spoiling anything, you play as a high school student with a secret double life. By day, you're navigating the trials and tribulations of school, classes, exams, and hanging out with your friends. But by night, you're a phantom thief, sneaking into mysterious realms to change hearts and fight evil. It's as cool as it sounds, trust me. The menus, the animations, even the transitions, everything feels like it was designed by someone with a passion for flair. Every little detail screams, we're going to make this look amazing, even if it's just a loading screen. And don't even get me started on the music. The jazzy soundtrack is the kind of thing you'll be humming for weeks after you play. And the gameplay. It's this perfect blend of turn-based combat and life simulation, and somehow it works beautifully. One moment you're strategizing in these gorgeous, surreal dungeons, pulling off stylish combos and unleashing your personas, which, by the way, are basically manifestations of your inner psyche. The next, you're deciding how to spend your free time. Do you study for your next exam? Work a part-time job, or go out for ramen with your friends? The balance between these two sides of the game is just chef's kiss. What I love most, though, is how Persona 5 makes everything you do feel meaningful. Spending time with your friends, called confidants, isn't just fun, it also gives you bonuses in battle. Doing well in school or working a part-time job helps you build skills that open up even more opportunities. Even the smallest choices feel like they matter. Dying Light. You know, there's something about Dying Light that just pulls you in. It's not just another zombie game. And trust me, I've played my share. What really grabbed me when I first picked it up was the way it mixed parkour with zombie survival. I mean, you're not just running from zombies, you're vaulting over fences, climbing buildings, and pulling off these crazy fluid parkour moves that make you feel like you're actually there. It's like the city is your playground, but with the constant threat of the undead breathing down your neck. That mix of freedom and fear, it's exhilarating. And the city of Heron? It's gritty, dirty, and oozing with atmosphere. During the day, you're mostly dealing with the slow, lumbering zombies, and you start to feel kind of bold, like, yeah, I got this. You're scavenging, crafting weapons, taking out a few zombies here and there, feeling pretty good about yourself. But as soon as night falls, it's like the game flips the script. You go from being the predator to the prey. Those volatiles, they still haunt me, honestly. The first time one spotted me, I panicked and barely escaped. The night cycle adds this whole other layer of tension, making you think twice before staying out too late. One of my favorite things, though, is how the game encourages creativity. You're not just limited to using guns or blunt objects. No, you can modify weapons, throw firecrackers to distract the undead, or set traps. I remember finding a baseball bat and modding it to electrocute zombies. CUPHEAD. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand. Instead, it hands you a pair of gloves and says, all right, let's see what you've got. So what's the deal with CUPHEAD? Well, it's all about boss battles. Big, bold, over-the-top showdowns that'll push your skills to the limit. Each encounter is completely unique, filled with crazy attacks, patterns you have to learn, and that sweet moment of triumph when you finally get it right. And trust me, those victories feel earned. This game doesn't hand them out like candy. The gameplay is fast, precise, and oh so satisfying. You'll be dodging, jumping, and shooting your way through a series of increasingly difficult fights, all while trying to keep track of what's happening on screen. And there's a lot happening on screen. But that's part of the fun. It's all about staying focused, learning the patterns, and figuring out how to outsmart each boss. One thing that really stands out is the variety. You're not just fighting the same type of boss over and over again. Each one feels like its own mini-event, with unique designs and attacks that keep you on your toes. One minute, you're dodging projectiles in a traditional platforming setup, and the next, you're flying through the air in a shoot-'em-up. It's this constant change of pace that keeps the game so engaging. And let's not forget about the co-op mode. Playing with a friend adds a whole new dynamic to the chaos, as you both work together to take down these larger-than-life foes. It's teamwork at its most frantic and fun. The Witcher 3. Blood and Wine. This expansion feels like a full-blown adventure of its own. The moment you step foot here, you'll notice how vibrant and distinct the region is, filled with rolling vineyards, colorful towns, and plenty of mystery lurking beneath the surface. Combat remains razor-sharp and strategic, with plenty of opportunities to test out different builds, potions, and tactics. The enemies in Toussaint are as unique as the land itself, with new creatures and foes that challenge your skills in fresh ways. Whether you're engaging in swordplay, using signs to control the battlefield, or preparing for a fight with meticulous planning, every encounter feels satisfying. Exploration in Blood and Wine is an absolute highlight. Toussaint is filled with hidden treasures, intriguing side quests, and areas that beg to be explored. From quaint villages to ominous ruins, each location feels handcrafted and packed with detail. Taking the time to wander off the beaten path often leads to some of the game's most memorable moments, and the world rewards curiosity at every turn. One of the standout features here is the attention to customization. Blood and Wine introduces new armor sets, upgrades, and even a personal vineyard that you can enhance. It's a small touch, but it adds a layer of connection to the world. Toussaint is a land that feels alive, brimming with charm, danger, and opportunities to immerse yourself in its world. It's the kind of expansion that reminds you why The Witcher 3 is considered one of the best RPGs ever made. Dead Space Remake, a game that completely revitalized a classic survival horror experience and honestly deserved a shot at Game of the Year. The original Dead Space was already a masterpiece, but the remake took it to another level, with modern graphics, tighter gameplay, and some amazing quality-of-life improvements. It was like stepping back into a nightmare, but with 4K visuals and even more horrifying details. First off, the atmosphere in the Dead Space remake was next level. The USG Ishimura felt more alive and dead than ever. Every creak, every shadow, and every flickering light just added to that sense of dread. The developers did an incredible job preserving what made the original so terrifying, while also cranking up the immersion. They rebuilt the whole game from the ground up, and it showed in how polished the environments were. The lighting alone made certain sections feel way scarier than before, like you're always one step away from something terrible. But here's the thing. While the Dead Space remake was stunning and faithful to its source material, some people argued that it didn't do enough to push the genre forward, which is probably why it didn't take home the Game of the Year trophy. It was a fantastic remake, but it stayed close to the original's formula, which, for some, felt more like a tribute than a bold new experience. But here's the bottom line. The Dead Space remake did exactly what it set out to do. Remind us why this franchise is one of the best in survival horror. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that it was one of the most polished and terrifying games of 2023. HELLBLADE: SENUA's Sacrifice. I can honestly say, it's unlike anything I've played before. Right from the beginning, it sets a tone that's dark, emotional, and deeply immersive. You can tell it's more than just an action-adventure game. There's a deeper story here, and it pulls you in with every step Senua takes on her journey. The story is so emotional, especially as it deals with mental health in such a powerful way. The way they portray Senua's psychosis, the voices in her head, it's also unsettling but fascinating at the same time. It's like you're constantly living inside her mind, and that really makes you connect with her. It's rare to see a game tackle such a heavy topic with so much respect and depth. And then there's the combat. It's intense, but it's not over the top. It feels personal. Like every fight is a struggle for survival. You're not just slashing through enemies for the sake of it. Each battle feels like it has weight, like Senua's fighting for something bigger. And the way the game makes you feel isolated, with those stunning landscapes that somehow feel both beautiful and haunting, it just adds to the experience. The audio design really stood out to me too. Wearing headphones made a huge difference. The voices surround you, whispering in your ear, sometimes confusing you, sometimes guiding you. It's such a smart use of sound to mess with your mind, making you question what's real. Just like Senua, I found myself genuinely tense during certain moments, not because of jump scares, but because of that constant feeling of unease. Doom Eternal, a game that's just pure adrenaline. From the moment you start, it's like the game grabs you by the collar and throws you into this insane, demon-filled chaos. The pacing is so fast and relentless, it makes you feel like this unstoppable force. You're not just playing as the Doomslayer, you are the Doomslayer, and it's awesome. One thing I love about Doom Eternal is how it forces you to play aggressively. You can't just hide behind cover and pick off enemies from a distance like in other shooters. No way. You have to get in their faces, constantly moving, switching weapons, and using your chainsaw to keep your ammo up. It's this perfect mix of strategy and brutality. There's no time to breathe. And honestly, that's what makes it so much fun. Every fight feels like a frantic dance of destruction, and once you get the rhythm down, it's such a rush. The combat loop is where it really shines. You're always juggling resources, health, armor, ammo, and you get those by fighting. Need health? Glory kill a demon. Low on armor? Set enemies on fire with the flame belch. It's a constant back and forth, and it makes every encounter feel dynamic. You never just shoot your way through a room, you're managing the chaos. And that's what makes it so addicting. And the weapons, man. Each one feels so satisfying. The shotgun, the plasma rifle, the BFG. It's all there. And it's all beefed up to feel more powerful than ever. Doom Eternal is an absolute must-play. It's intense, it's challenging, and it's just pure, unfiltered fun. Hogwarts Legacy. Honestly, this game is like a dream come true for anyone who's ever wanted to live out their Hogwarts fantasy. If you've grown up loving the world of Harry Potter, or just love the idea of being a wizard, this game really nails that feeling of stepping into the magical world. I mean, the second you get sorted into your house, it's like, yep, this is it. I'm at Hogwarts now. The school itself is gorgeous. They've done such an incredible job of capturing the magic and mystery of Hogwarts. You can literally spend hours just wandering around, getting lost in the hallways, finding hidden passages, and taking in all the little details. It's exactly how I imagined the castle would feel, like every corner has a secret or a bit of history waiting to be discovered. What's cool, too, is how the game lets you really craft your own story. You're not just following the Harry Potter timeline, you're in a completely new time period, which is honestly refreshing. You get to create your own character, make your own choices, and carve out your own adventure. And it's not just about being a goody-two-shoes student either. You can dive into some darker magic if you want, which is something I didn't expect but absolutely love. The combat is surprisingly deep too. At first, I thought it might be kind of simple, but there's actually a lot of strategy. You can mix and match different spells, use potions, and even summon creatures to help you out. And the way the spells are animated, like the wand flicks and the flashes of magic, it's so satisfying. You really feel like a proper witch or wizard. Ghost of Tsushima. From the moment you start playing, it just feels like you're stepping into this beautifully crafted world. The first thing that really grabbed me was the landscape. The island of Tsushima is stunning, with these rolling hills, forests, and temples scattered all around. And the way the wind guides you instead of using a mini-map, that was such a cool touch. It makes you feel like you're part of the world, not just playing a game. The combat is another thing that I couldn't stop thinking about. It's so fluid and satisfying. At first, I was a bit nervous because samurai combat can be tricky, but the way it's designed here feels so intuitive. You switch between stances depending on who you're fighting, and it just flows so well. Every sword fight feels like it has weight. There were times when I would stop and challenge a group of enemies to a standoff, just because it felt so epic. You literally feel like a samurai. Speaking of feeling like a samurai, the story really pulls you in. It's all about Jin Sakai and his struggle between upholding the samurai code and doing what needs to be done to save his people. It gets you thinking, you know? Like, what would you do in his shoes? Would you stick to the rules or adapt to survive? The game really leans into that inner conflict, and I found myself getting attached to Jin and the other characters, especially his uncle. The emotional moments hit hard, and let's not forget the duels. Oh man, the duels. Some of the most intense moments in the game for sure. You face off against these really skilled enemies. The Order 1886. I know it got mixed reviews when it came out, but honestly I think it's super underrated. It's like every single thing from the cobblestone streets to the smoke-filled taverns feels alive. You can really see how much love went into building that world. The steampunk vibe is also really cool. You've got this mix of old-school Victorian aesthetic with futuristic tech, like those crazy weapons that Nikola Tesla himself designed. The thermite rifle, for example, is just so satisfying to use. You shoot clouds of thermite at enemies, and then light it up with a flare, setting everything ablaze. It's so over the top, but in the best way possible. And the story? It's actually pretty engaging. You're part of this ancient order of knights tasked with keeping the peace in London, but things get real complicated, especially with the introduction of half-breeds, like werewolves, and other supernatural threats. Plus, the way it blends history with fantasy, that was a fun twist for me. Sir Galahad, the main character, has this gruff, no-nonsense attitude that really pulls you into the whole mystery and intrigue of the game. I liked how he's conflicted, dealing with betrayal and questioning everything around him. It gave the game more emotional depth than I expected. The gunplay is solid too. It's not a massive open-world shooter, but for a more linear experience, the mechanics work great. Each weapon feels unique, and the cover system is smooth. And those cinematic QuickTime events, I know some people aren't fans of QTEs, but here they blend so well with the action. It feels more like you're playing through a movie. Sniper Elite 5, a game that didn't exactly get the warmest reception from everyone when it launched. Now, if you've played any of the previous Sniper Elite games, you know what you're getting into. Tactical, long-range shooting, and those signature X-ray kill cams that are both brutal and weirdly satisfying. But when Sniper Elite 5 dropped, some people weren't all that impressed, and it ended up getting a bit of hate. One of the main complaints people had was that it didn't feel all that different from Sniper Elite 4. Some players were expecting a bigger leap forward in terms of gameplay and mechanics, but instead, they got more of the same. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you love the formula, but for some, it felt like the game was playing it too safe. People wanted more innovation, and when they didn't get it, the criticism started rolling in. Another controversial aspect is the game's pacing. Sniper Elite 5 is all about slow, methodical gameplay. You're sneaking around, scouting enemies, lining up the perfect shot. It's a thinking person's shooter. But not everyone's down for that kind of experience. But here's the thing. Sniper Elite 5 still absolutely nails what makes the series fun. The maps are massive and give you so many ways to approach your objectives. Whether you want to go in guns blazing or take a more stealthy route, the game gives you that freedom. Also, let's not forget those kill cams. People can criticize the game all they want, but there's nothing quite like watching a perfectly placed shot rip through an enemy's organs in slow motion. Skyrim. Where do you even start with a game like Skyrim? This game is just huge. It's one of those games that just keeps pulling you in, no matter how many times you've played it before. You boot it up thinking, I'll just play for an hour. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you're sneaking around in the Thieves Guild or fighting a dragon on top of a mountain. First off, the world. It's absolutely massive and it feels alive, from the snowy peaks of the Throat of the World to the rolling plains of Whiterun. Every part of Skyrim feels like it has its own story to tell. And the fact that you can go anywhere, do anything, it's such a freeing experience. Like, if you see a mountain in the distance, you can actually go there. And you never know what's going to happen along the way. Maybe you run into a giant, or you stumble upon some hidden cave with its own little quest line. It's just endless discovery. The combat, well, it's classic Skyrim. It's not about being super fancy or fast-paced, but it's about choice. You want to swing a giant axe? Go for it. Prefer sneaking around with a bow or dual-wielding daggers? Totally doable. Or maybe you want to go full wizard, summoning flames and raising the dead. Whatever your style, the game lets you play exactly how you want. And speaking of choice, the quests are insane. Sure, there's the main story about you being the Dragonborn with the whole saving the world thing. But honestly, the side quests are where it's at. You can get caught up joining the Dark Brotherhood and becoming an assassin, or leading the companions and becoming a werewolf. The Division 2. It's like someone took the best parts of a cover-based shooter, mashed them up with RPG elements, and then dropped it all into a beautifully detailed, post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. So the setup is simple. The world's gone sideways, and it's your job to bring some order to the chaos. You're an agent of the Division, a group of super-trained operatives trying to hold everything together. But honestly, the real fun isn't in saving the day. It's in exploring, strategizing, and slowly building yourself into an unstoppable force of nature. The game is all about cover-based strategy here. Running into a fight, guns blazing? Yeah, good luck with that. Instead, you're ducking behind cars, flanking enemies, and figuring out how to use your gadgets to outsmart the other side. And those gadgets? Absolute lifesavers. Turrets, drones, seeker mines. You've got a whole arsenal of futuristic toys to mess with. And they're all ridiculously fun to use. The enemies aren't just bullet sponges either. They're smart. They'll flank you, use cover, and coordinate to take you down. There's a real sense of satisfaction when you clear an area because you earned it. Every firefight feels intense and rewarding, especially when you're playing with friends. Speaking of which, Co-op is where this game truly shines, rolling into a mission with your squad, calling out targets and covering each other's backs. It's peak teamwork. Plus, there's something hilarious about your buddy panicking over the comms while you're casually tossing a healing grenade their way. Fallout 4. This game is all about exploring a massive, post-apocalyptic world filled with adventure, surprises, and the freedom to forge your own story. Right from the start, you're stepping into a world that feels alive. Well, as alive as a wasteland can be. You emerge into this beautifully ruined version of Boston, and there's this sense of mystery about what happened, who survived, and how you'll carve out your place in it. One of the best parts about Fallout 4 is just how much freedom you have. Want to be a hero, saving settlements and helping people out? Go for it. Prefer to be more of a lone wanderer, exploring every nook and cranny at your own pace? You can totally do that too. The game really lets you make those decisions and watch as the world reacts to you, which makes it feel super personal. And the combat, super satisfying. You can target specific body parts on enemies, which gives battles a bit of a strategic twist. Whether you're up against raiders, mutated creatures, or robots, every fight keeps you on your toes. And the weapon variety is massive. You can go from a simple pipe pistol to a full-blown laser rifle. Whatever fits your style. Plus, there's so much to discover. Every abandoned shack, rusted-out car, and hidden bunker has a story, whether it's in the form of an old journal, a skeleton in an odd place, or a stash of supplies that makes you wonder who left it behind. Fallout 4 is full of these tiny details that make the world feel rich and layered, like you're uncovering secrets at every turn. Forza Horizon 5. Even if you're not a racing game person, trust me, you'll still find something to love here. It's like a love letter to cars, exploration, and just having a good time behind the wheel. Remember when you used to race toy cars around your living room, making up little adventures as you went? Forza Horizon 5 brings that same energy, but cranks it up to 11. It's not just about winning races, though that's fun too. It's about playing. The freedom you have to do whatever you want is amazing. They've got everything from souped-up classics to hypercars that look like they belong in a sci-fi movie. And the customization. You can tweak everything. Paint jobs, performance, even little decals. It's like a car nerd's dream come true. But don't worry, you don't have to be a gearhead to enjoy it. The game does a great job of keeping things accessible. Whether you're a casual player or a hardcore racer, the controls are just buttery smooth, and the way each car handles feels unique. Want to go off-roading in a big, beefy truck? Go for it. Prefer zipping through city streets in a sleek sports car? Done. It's not just racing, it's an experience. And the best part? You don't even have to race if you don't want to. There are stunt challenges, speed traps, exploration events. It's like a big automotive playground. And the seasonal changes? Genius. The world evolves over time. So one week you might be racing in dry deserts, and the next you're dealing with torrential rain. It keeps things fresh and gives you an excuse to keep coming back. Resident Evil 7. One of the coolest things about the game is how immersive it feels. They went with a first-person perspective, which, let me tell you, makes everything so much scarier. It's like you're in the middle of a horror movie, and you're the main character. And they nailed that gritty, creepy vibe. The sound design is just incredible, with creaky floors, distant footsteps, and other little sounds that keep you on edge. It really pulls you into the experience. You're exploring this creepy, run-down mansion, and right away, you can feel the game practically daring you to go deeper. And trust me, every corner you turn is filled with suspense. It's got that classic, what's around the next corner feel, where you're bracing yourself for something terrifying. I found myself holding my breath more than a few times. Combat-wise, it's got that classic Resident Evil survival feel. You're not overloaded with ammo, so every bullet counts, and you have to make careful decisions. It's a nice balance of horror and action, where you're fighting to survive, but still constantly feeling vulnerable. And the enemies? Let's just say they're some of the creepiest in the series. The puzzles are a fun throwback too. They're clever, without being overwhelming, and they add that classic Resident Evil touch to the game. You're searching for keys, unlocking doors, and solving riddles, which all just adds to the sense of discovery and dread. And honestly, the Baker family. They are some of the most memorable characters in horror gaming. Period. Each encounter with them is just nerve-wracking, and you never know what they'll do next. Persona 5 Royal. Imagine a mix of an anime-inspired high school life simulator, a classic RPG, and a supernatural heist adventure. And somehow, this game pulls it all off beautifully. What makes Persona 5 Royal special is its ability to balance two very different worlds: your everyday life as a high school student and your alter ego as a phantom thief. By day, you're living in Tokyo, going to school, hanging out with friends, working part-time jobs, and even studying. Yes, there are in-game quizzes, but by night, you're diving into these surreal, mind-bending dungeons called palaces to steal the twisted desires of villains and, save the world. Another thing that sets Persona 5 Royal apart is the combat. It's turn-based, but with a twist that makes every encounter feel dynamic. And you get to summon powerful creatures called personas to aid you in battle. It's flashy, fast, and incredibly satisfying when you manage to exploit enemy weaknesses and pull off a team combo. Plus, Royal adds even more personas and abilities to the mix, which just makes the whole thing even more engaging. And if you're wondering what makes Persona 5 Royal different from the original Persona 5, it's like getting an expanded director's cut. You get extra story content, new characters, an additional semester at school, and a brand new palace. These additions don't just feel like bonus content, but more like necessary pieces that deepen the story and characters even further. Spec Ops: The Line. It's one of those games that messes with your expectations in the best way. I remember going into it thinking, oh, just another military shooter, right? At first glance, it looks like your standard third-person cover shooter. You're leading a squad, you've got your guns, sandstorms everywhere because it's set in Dubai, and it all seems pretty straightforward, but as you dig deeper, that's where things start to unravel. The story pulls you in directions you don't expect, and it really makes you question your choices, like seriously question them. What I loved about Spec Ops: The Line is how it uses the setting and the characters to play with your mind. You start feeling like the hero, but after certain missions you're like, wait, am I doing the right thing here? The game gets into some heavy stuff about the horrors of war and the consequences of your actions, which is something most shooters don't really touch on. It's more than just, go here, shoot this. There's a layer of guilt and responsibility that weighs on you by the end. Plus, the gameplay is solid. I mean, the shooting mechanics are great, the cover system works well, and the environmental destruction with the sandstorms is a cool twist. But really, the gameplay is just a vehicle for the narrative, and that's what elevates this game from being just another shooter to something special. You don't see a lot of games that really make you reflect on the violence in that way. Honestly, if you're into games that challenge you emotionally and mentally, while still delivering fun, engaging action, Spec Ops is a must. Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. This game is seriously underrated and deserves way more love. Imagine an open-world action game set in the bustling streets of Hong Kong, where you play as an undercover cop tangled up in the city's dangerous criminal underworld. It's like GTA, but with a unique twist that really sets it apart. And let's not forget the driving. Sleeping Dogs has some of the most fun driving mechanics out there. It's super arcadey, and you can do crazy stunts, hijack cars on the go, and even ram other cars off the road. There's something so satisfying about zooming through the city, dodging traffic, and knowing you can hop out at any time to start a fistfight. The city is alive with neon lights, crowded markets, and tons of little side activities that make it feel so authentic. You can go sing karaoke. Yes, karaoke. Try your luck at street races, or just cruise around and soak in the atmosphere. The developers did a fantastic job capturing the vibe of Hong Kong, and it's a city you actually want to explore. One of the best parts of Sleeping Dogs is the hand-to-hand combat. It's like a martial arts movie come to life. You're throwing punches, countering moves, and using your environment in the coolest ways. You can slam enemies into fish tanks, toss them off balconies, and even use random objects around you to gain the upper hand. So, if you're into action games with a great story and a city that feels alive and vibrant, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is absolutely worth checking out. Borderlands 3. The combat in Borderlands 3 is just pure, unfiltered chaos in the best way possible. You've got guns that shoot other guns, grenades that create black holes, and even weapons that yell insults while you fire them. It's not just about how many guns there are, though there are a lot. It's how creative and ridiculous they are. Every time you pick up a new weapon, you never know if it's going to completely change how you play, or just make you laugh out loud. And let's not forget the movement. They've really amped it up in this game. You can slide, mantle, and just zoom around the battlefield like a maniac. It makes every encounter feel dynamic and keeps the adrenaline pumping. There's nothing quite like sliding into cover, tossing out your action skill, and watching as absolute mayhem unfolds around you. Now let's talk about the world. Or should I say worlds? This isn't just Pandora anymore. Nope. Borderlands 3 takes you to multiple planets, each with its own unique vibe. You've got lush jungles, neon-lit cities, and even deserts that feel alive with danger and opportunity. It's a visual feast, and the art style? Still that iconic comic book-inspired look, but sharper and more vibrant than ever. It's like someone took a Saturday morning cartoon, threw in some chaos, and cranked it up to HD. Now, I know some people think the story in Borderlands 3 might be a bit wild or over the top, but that's kind of the point. It's unapologetically zany. And for me, that's a big part of the charm. Alan Wake 2. If you played the first game, you probably already know how trippy things can get, but this sequel, it cranks up that eerie, psychological horror vibe to a whole new level. It's like being stuck in a thriller novel that keeps messing with your head. And I mean that in the best possible way. So, right off the bat, the atmosphere in this game is incredible. Every location feels drenched in mystery and dread. Whether you're walking through dark forests, creepy small towns, or abandoned buildings, there's this constant tension in the air, like something's always lurking just out of sight. It's not just about jump scares, though. It's that slow, creeping sense of unease that really gets under your skin. The game does such a good job of making you feel like you're never truly safe. The story? Man. It's deep. It's a blend of supernatural horror, psychological thriller, and just straight-up weirdness. You're dealing with Alan's mind unraveling, and reality itself starts to bend and twist around you. There are moments where you're not sure what's real, what's in his head, or what's being written into existence. It's this constant mind game that keeps you hooked. And what I love is how the game doesn't spoon-feed you answers. You're piecing together this puzzle, and it feels so satisfying when things click, or get even weirder. Combat is another high point. The whole flashlight and gun mechanic from the first game is back, but it's more refined this time around. You're constantly managing light and darkness. A Plague Tale Requiem. It absolutely should have been in the running for Game of the Year, but didn't quite get the recognition it deserved. This sequel took everything great about A Plague Tale Innocence and cranked it up to a whole new level. The story, the characters, the visuals, it was all so much more intense. And honestly, it hit harder than a lot of people expected. First off, the story in Requiem was a gut punch in the best way. Following Amicia and Hugo's journey through a world ravaged by the plague and the supernatural rat infestation, you could feel the stakes growing as you progressed. What really stood out was the emotional weight of the game. It wasn't just about survival. It was about family, loss, and the lengths you'd go to protect the ones you love. The character development for both Amicia and Hugo was top tier, and by the end, it was impossible not to be emotionally invested in their fate. The game also looked absolutely stunning. The environments were jaw-dropping, whether you were sneaking through crumbling ruins, lush countrysides, or the plague-infested streets. The attention to detail made the world feel alive. Well, as alive as a world overrun by millions of rats can feel. And speaking of the rats, Requiem took the swarming rat mechanic from the first game and made it even crazier. The way they used light and shadow to control and avoid the rats created some of the most tense, nail-biting moments in the game. Another thing to consider is that Requiem came out in 2022, which was a year dominated by games like Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. Dragon's Dogma 2. After playing this game, I have to say it really exceeded my expectations. I mean, I was excited going in, sure, but once I actually got my hands on it, I realized just how much Capcom stepped up their game. Everything feels bigger, better, and more immersive than the first one. First off, the world is massive. I remember just wandering around for hours, not even on a quest, just exploring. The sense of adventure is so strong here. Every corner of the map feels like it has something interesting to uncover. Whether it's a hidden cave, a random group of enemies, or just a breathtaking view, you always feel like you're discovering something new. The combat, though, that's where the game shines. It's fast, fluid, and really customizable. I spent so much time tweaking my character's build, trying out different classes. One moment I was a nimble strider, darting around enemies, and the next I was a towering warrior smashing through everything. Every fight feels dynamic, especially with the new monster encounters. Those big hulking creatures, they're no joke. Climbing onto their backs mid-fight is such a rush. But what I loved most was the pawn system. They've really refined it. My pawn wasn't just a sidekick. They were essential. I grew so attached to them, seeing how they adapted to my playstyle. Sometimes I felt like they were learning faster than I was. It's cool to see your pawn in someone else's game too. I got some great items because other players were borrowing mine and leveling them up. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now this game was supposed to be a huge hit. It's a Star Wars game after all, and it's a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which everyone loved. But for some reason, Jedi Survivor didn't quite hit the same heights, at least not right away. Still, this is a game that's definitely better than its initial reception might suggest. When it launched, the game had a lot of bugs, especially on PC. People were reporting frame rate drops, crashes, and all sorts of technical problems. It was one of those situations where the game itself was great, but the technical hiccups held it back. And in the world of gaming, nothing kills the hype faster than a buggy launch. But here's the thing, once you look past the technical stuff, which has mostly been patched up now, Jedi Survivor is an awesome game. It takes everything that made Fallen Order great and cranks it up a notch. The combat is even more fluid and fun, with new lightsaber stances that let you really customize how you play. Whether you want to go full-on double-bladed action or switch between blasters and sabers, the game gives you options. And it all feels so good. And the exploration. It's even better this time around. The planets in Jedi Survivor are bigger, more open, and filled with secrets to discover. The Metroidvania-style design is back, so you'll be unlocking new abilities and returning to areas to access previously locked-off sections. Jedi Survivor is a beautiful game. The environments are diverse and visually stunning. You definitely don't want to sleep on this one. Stalker 2. So, you know how some games make you feel like you're surviving? Like, really surviving? That's Stalker 2 in a nutshell. The zone is the star of the show. It's haunting, it's dangerous, and it's unpredictable. What I love most is how it doesn't hold your hand. You're thrown into this place, and you just have to figure it out. It's like the game is saying, hey, good luck out there, buddy. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so satisfying. It's all about exploration, taking risks, and making decisions that can completely change your experience. If you've played the original Stalker games, you already know this isn't your typical shoot and loot affair. You're scavenging, crafting, and constantly managing your resources. And it feels real. Ammo isn't something you take for granted. Food and medical supplies, you'll cherish them like gold. And don't even get me started on the anomalies. These bizarre, deadly phenomena scattered across the zone add this layer of tension that keeps you on edge at all times. Every step you take feels like it matters. The NPCs you encounter in Stalker 2 are not just background noise. They feel like real people trying to survive, just like you. Some might help you, some might not. And figuring out who to trust is all part of the journey. If you love a good challenge, or if you just want to experience something truly unique, Stalker 2 needs to be on your radar. It's not just a sequel, it's a love letter to fans of the series and a bold step forward into a new generation of gaming. Bloodborne. It absolutely deserved to win Game of the Year in 2015, but didn't quite get the crown. I mean, this game was From Software at its peak, delivering an intense gothic nightmare of a world that fans still rave about to this day. It's wild to think that something this groundbreaking didn't take home the big award. First off, the atmosphere in Bloodborne, unreal. Yharnam was this dark, twisted, Victorian city filled with werewolves, cosmic horrors, and nightmare creatures that just kept you on edge the entire time. The design of the world was so hauntingly beautiful, with that classic From Software touch, where every alley and hidden path had a story to tell. The game didn't hold your hand either, which was part of its charm. You had to figure everything out on your own, from the lore to the mechanics. And let's talk about that combat system. Bloodborne took the typical slow, methodical Souls formula and made it fast and aggressive. You couldn't just hang back and wait. The game literally rewarded you for going on the offense with that regain system. If you got hit, you had a window to hit back and regain your health, which encouraged players to stay in the fight instead of running away. It was like Dark Souls on adrenaline. But here's the thing, Bloodborne came out the same year as The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and that's where things get tricky. The Witcher 3 swept most of the awards that year, and while it was undoubtedly a great game, a lot of people felt like Bloodborne was overshadowed because of that. But for those who played it, Bloodborne was a masterpiece. Rise of the Tomb Raider. This game really took me by surprise in the best way possible. I mean, I knew going in it was going to be a solid game, but it actually exceeded my expectations on so many levels. First off, the environments are stunning. Every single location feels meticulously crafted, from the frozen Siberian mountains to the hidden tombs. You really feel like you're on this epic adventure with Lara. I found myself just stopping to take in the views at times, which isn't something I do often in action games. And speaking of action, the combat and stealth mechanics are incredibly satisfying. You get this perfect blend of intense firefights, sneaky takedowns, and crafting that just keeps you engaged throughout. There's this real sense of progression, too. By the end of the game, I felt like Lara had grown so much, not just as a character, but in terms of abilities. You can craft your own explosives, improve your gear, and upgrade your skills, so it feels like you're always evolving. The game nails that feeling of being alone in the wilderness. There were plenty of moments where I felt like Lara was up against impossible odds, but her resilience kept pushing her forward. There's something really inspiring about that. It's like you're constantly in survival mode, scavenging for resources, battling enemies, and fighting the elements. I have to say, the tombs themselves are a standout. They're optional, but trust me, they're worth exploring. Some of the puzzles had me scratching my head for a while, but that moment of solving them is so satisfying. Final Fantasy XVI. I wasn't sure what to expect going in because the series has gone through so many different styles, but this one really grabbed me right away. First off, the story got this darker, more mature vibe compared to some of the other Final Fantasy games. I love how it dives deep into political drama, with all these nations fighting over the power of the Icons. It feels like you're watching this epic medieval fantasy unfold. And speaking of Iconso Man, those battles are insane. You've got these massive cinematic showdowns between these godlike creatures. The scale of it all is just jaw-dropping. Plus, the real-time combat system. It's smooth, it's fast, and it's so satisfying when you pull off these combos and juggle enemies mid-air. I think that shift away from the turn-based combat really helps the game feel fresh, you know? Now, the world of Valisthea is stunning. Everywhere you go, the landscapes just pull you in. From vast deserts to lush forests, it's one of those worlds that begs to be explored. I found myself constantly stopping to just take in the view. The towns and cities feel lived into each. One has its own vibe, and I loved talking to NPCs and learning more about the world's lore. Plus, the side quests, they actually have depth. It's not just go fetch this or kill that, but instead, they give you more context about the world and characters, which I always appreciate. I think the only thing that threw me off at first was how different it feels from classic Final Fantasy games. Infamous Second Son. It's such a great pick when looking back at favorite games, especially after all these years. It's one of those games that might not always get mentioned in the big best-of-all-time list, but for those who played it, it really leaves a lasting impression. The game came out as one of the earlier titles for the PS4, and honestly, it still holds up really well. You step into the shoes of Delson Rowe, a rebellious guy who suddenly gets these insane superpowers. What I love about the game is how good it feels to actually use those powers. Whether you're running up buildings, gliding through the air, or just wrecking shop with your abilities, the movement and action feel super smooth and fun. The game absolutely nails that sense of power, which, let's face it, is what we're all here for in a superhero-style game. Seattle is the backdrop for all the action, and they did such a good job with the city's vibe. It's not a carbon copy of the real Seattle, but it's got enough personality to feel alive, and the way the environment changes based on your actions is a nice touch. That whole dynamic, where your choices matter, whether you want to be a hero or lean into a more destructive, rebellious path, adds a layer of replayability. And honestly, both paths are equally fun. Infamous Second Son really nails that feeling of freedom, and the pacing keeps you engaged from start to finish. It's one of those games where you can easily lose hours just exploring, testing out your powers, and getting into epic showdowns with the game's enemies. Diablo 4. It's all about the thrill of combat and the promise of loot. Whether you're summoning dark magic, charging into battle as a tanky powerhouse, or raining arrows from a distance, every choice feels powerful and satisfying. But here's the kicker, this isn't just a game where you hack through enemies mindlessly. Combat in Diablo 4 feels strategic. It's about reading the battlefield, knowing when to go all in and when to pull back, and chaining together abilities in ways that make you feel unstoppable. Oh, and the enemies? They don't go easy on you. They're relentless, varied, and sometimes downright terrifying, forcing you to stay sharp and constantly adapt. Now, let's talk about the loot, because honestly, what's Diablo without loot, right? It's everywhere, and every piece you pick up feels like a mini jackpot. It's not just about shiny gear, it's about finding the perfect combination that makes your build truly click. Maybe it's a weapon that boosts your crits, or a piece of armor that lets you shrug off hits like a pro. The excitement of checking your inventory after every fight never gets old. Exploration in Diablo 4 is another highlight. The world is massive, and it feels alive in a way that keeps you curious. You're not just moving from one dungeon to the next. You're uncovering secrets, stumbling upon events, and discovering challenges that are as rewarding as they are unpredictable. It's a world that begs you to get lost in it, and there's always something waiting to be found. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. This game is, in a word, awesome. I mean, we're talking about one of the most exhilarating open-world experiences out there. Right from the start, the game drops you into this beautifully crafted New York City. And let me just say, it's not just any New York. It's a New York packed with detail, life, and personality. You've got bustling streets, landmarks, and people actually going about their day. It's honestly such a joy just exploring, whether you're swinging past Central Park or chilling on the top of the Empire State Building. The world feels alive, and it makes being Spider-Man feel real. And that web-swinging mechanic, oh, it's a dream. There's this rhythm to it that you quickly get into, and before you know it, you're zipping through buildings, performing aerial tricks, and just feeling unstoppable. I've got to say, even if there were no missions and all you could do was swing around, it would still be a blast. It's that good. The movement is smooth, intuitive, and just fun. There's no other word for it. It makes you feel like a pro within minutes, yet it's so satisfying that you'll still be enjoying it hours later. And then there's the combat. It's a perfect blend of strategy, agility, and good old-fashioned brawling. You're not just swinging fists. You're flipping, dodging, using gadgets, and keeping an eye on the environment. The game lets you approach fights however you want. You can go in stealthy, plan out your attacks, or just jump in and start kicking. It's totally up to you. Far Cry New Dawn. Now, I know this game has had its fair share of mixed reactions, and some people wrote it off without really giving it a chance. People saw New Dawn as more of a spin-off or a standalone expansion than a full Far Cry title. It's a bit shorter, and yes, some assets are reused from Far Cry 5, which led to some feeling like Ubisoft was just rehashing content. But the thing is, New Dawn takes those familiar elements and mixes them up with new mechanics that are actually a blast to play. They introduced this whole light RPG system where enemies have different levels, and you can craft and upgrade weapons to take them down. It's a bit of a departure for Far Cry, but it's fun. And the weapon upgrades add this cool progression element that feels rewarding as you build up your gear. Another cool feature in Far Cry New Dawn is the expeditions. These are missions that take you out of Hope County to different locations around the U.S., like a deserted amusement park or an aircraft carrier, to scavenge resources. It's such a cool way to break up the gameplay, and it really gives you the sense that the world outside Hope County is also chaotic and dangerous. These missions add variety and give you a chance to explore different environments, which is something you don't typically get in a single location Far Cry game. And let's not overlook that classic Far Cry chaos. New Dawn is packed with wild moments. 1 minute you're sneaking through enemy territory, and the next you're riding a saw blade shooting crossbow. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. If you're familiar with the Yakuza series, you already know you're in for something big, bold, and just a little over the top. This game picks up with our guy, Ichiban Kasuga, who's back for another round of absolute chaos, heartwarming moments, and more twists than you can count. And let me tell you, if you're ready for a journey that's equal parts action, drama, and pure hilarity, this one's going to hit the spot. What makes Infinite Wealth stand out is how it blends a serious story with some of the funniest, most bizarre side activities you'll ever see. 1 minute, you're dealing with intense emotional scenes. The next, you're wrapped up in a totally ridiculous minigame, and you're laughing because it's so outrageous. It's like they managed to throw in every wild idea they could think of, and somehow it all works. And with Ichiban leading the way, every moment feels fresh and unpredictable. Now, the turn-based combat, it's back. And better than ever. The strategy side of things adds this fun layer to every battle, and it's packed with quirky moves that only a game like a Dragon could pull off. And if you've played the previous games, you'll notice the combat's even more refined here. It's still got that signature mix of outlandish attacks and strategic depth, which makes every fight feel epic and hilarious at the same time. But beyond the action, it's really about the characters. Ichiban is one of those protagonists who's impossible not to root for. He's got this mix of loyalty, optimism, and pure heart that makes him stand out. Evil West. If you're into games that let you feel like a total badass while fighting supernatural creatures, this one's for you. It's like Red Dead Redemption meets Van Helsing, but with way more punch. First off, the combat is brutal. You've got this mix of melee and ranged weapons that keeps things interesting the entire time. One moment, you're blasting vampires with a rifle, and the next, you're smashing them into pieces with an electrified gauntlet. The flow of switching between weapons and powers feels so natural. I loved how I never felt stuck using one method. The game just encourages you to get creative with the chaos. The story really surprised me too. I went in expecting just some fun, mindless action, but the narrative actually hooked me. You play as Jesse Rentier, this tough-as-nails cowboy working for a secret monster hunting institute, and the whole Wild West meets horror vibe is so well done. It's not Shakespeare, but it fits the tone perfectly. There's this balance of grit and humor in the dialogue that kept me engaged the whole way through. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's not just a throwaway plot either. I also love that they didn't overcomplicate things with RPG elements. There are upgrades, sure, but they don't slow down the action. You can upgrade your weapons and skills as you go, but it's straightforward and doesn't bog you down with too many choices. It's more about fine-tuning how you want to fight, which really lets you focus on the combat and the carnage. Atomic Heart. From the moment you jump into this weird, retro-futuristic Soviet world, you can tell you're in for something totally different. The whole vibe of the game is what grabbed me first. It's like if BioShock and Half-Life had this crazy alternate reality baby. The setting just pulls you in right away. Everything's all shiny and utopian on the surface, but you can feel this eerie tension creeping in. Like something's definitely not right here. The aesthetics? Absolutely stunning. It's got this whole 1950s retro sci-fi look, but it's set in this alternate version of the USSR where technology advanced in these weird, unsettling ways. Robots everywhere. And they're not your friendly, helpful kind either. As you're exploring, you've got this constant sense of, okay, when's the next crazy thing gonna try and kill me? It keeps you on edge, but in a fun way. Combat is intense, but super satisfying. You've got all these cool weapons, and then you mix in these crazy powers you can use with your left hand. It's like you're blasting enemies with a shotgun in one hand while using telekinesis or freezing them with your other hand. The mix of gunplay and abilities just feels so smooth and fluid. And let me tell you, when you finally master the combo system, you feel like a total badass. The enemies are really something too. You've got these creepy humanoid robots with weird, unsettling movements, and then there are the more bizarre, out there designs that look like something out of a fever dream. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain. It's one of those experiences that really makes you feel like you're in control of a tactical open-world espionage operation. From the moment you start as Big Boss, or Venom Snake, if you want to get technical, you know you're in for something special. The way the game blends stealth, action, and freedom of choice is just next level. Let's start with the open world. Unlike previous Metal Gear games, which were more linear, The Phantom Pain drops you into these massive living environments. You've got Afghanistan's rocky, mountainous terrain, and the jungles of Africa, each filled with enemy bases, patrols, and wild animals. The thing is, the world isn't just a backdrop. It reacts to how you play. You can approach missions any way you want, whether it's going in guns blazing or sneaking in without anyone ever knowing you were there. And the best part? If you get caught, the game doesn't punish you too harshly. You can adapt, think on your feet, and still pull off the mission. That freedom keeps the tension high and the experience fresh every time. The stealth mechanics? They're just so well done. You've got all these tools at your disposal. Decoys, tranquilizer guns, night vision goggles, and you can customize your loadout for every mission. One of my favorite things to do is use the cardboard box, classic Metal Gear, to sneak around or surprise enemies. It's so ridiculous, but somehow always works. And Mother Base is such a cool feature. You're constantly building it up. Street Fighter 6. First off, this game doesn't just toss you into the action and say, good luck. It genuinely wants you to succeed. There's an entire suite of tools designed to help you get better at the game, whether you're a complete newbie or a seasoned pro. From the controls to the tutorials, everything feels approachable without ever dumbing it down. It's a game that respects your time and your willingness to learn. And honestly, that's pretty refreshing in a genre that can sometimes feel intimidating. It's got that classic Street Fighter DNA, but with just enough new twists to make it feel fresh and exciting. Every punch, kick, and fireball feels like it packs a serious punch. The roster of fighters is stacked with returning legends and new faces that each bring something unique to the table. It's not just about picking your favorite character. It's about finding one that feels like an extension of your playstyle. Whether you like to get up close and personal or keep your distance with flashy moves, there's someone here for you. Oh, and the combos? They're ridiculously satisfying to pull off. There's nothing quite like stringing together a sequence of moves, landing a perfect counter, and then watching the results play out in slow motion. It's the kind of thing that makes you feel like a fighting game genius, even if you're just mashing buttons half the time. Whether you're honing your skills, customizing your character, or jumping online for some friendly or not-so-friendly competition, there's always something to do. Lords of the Fallen. Now here's a game that has an interesting story, but not in the way you'd expect, because I'm talking about the story of how the game itself has been received. Lords of the Fallen is one of those games that came out swinging with big ideas, tried some bold moves, and got, well, a lot of hate for it. And honestly, most of it feels a bit unfair. This game came out in the shadow of Dark Souls, and, I mean, it's tough to go toe-to-toe with that. People immediately compared it to From Software's epic series, and fair enough, Lords of the Fallen definitely wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It's got that dark fantasy look, tough-as-nails combat, and a focus on dodging, blocking, and timing your attacks. But here's the thing. Just because it shares a genre doesn't mean it's trying to be a Dark Souls clone. And this is where I think a lot of players missed the point. Where Lords of the Fallen shines is in its own take on the action RPG formula. It doesn't try to be as brutally difficult as Dark Souls. Instead, it aims for more accessibility, which is honestly a great thing. It makes this style of game way more approachable for players who might be new to the genre or just don't have the time to get good through dozens of hours of trial and error. Lords of the Fallen balances challenge with a little more leniency, which is refreshing. The combat itself is actually really satisfying. It's chunky and there's this real weight to every swing of your weapon. It doesn't have the razor-sharp precision of Dark Souls. CLAIR OBSCUR 33. This is an intricate and deeply atmospheric puzzle-adventure game that revolves around uncovering the truth. In a world shrouded in mystery and contrast, the game leans heavily into its mechanics, offering a blend of clever problem-solving and exploration that feels distinctly tailored for those who appreciate a cerebral challenge. It's a space where every element exists for a reason, demanding your attention to detail and rewarding your curiosity. Every area you explore challenges your perception, requiring you to think about space and perspective in ways that few other games dare to explore. The interplay of light and darkness serves as the foundation for its puzzles, turning even the simplest task into a layered and engaging experience. The puzzles here are methodically crafted, each one designed to push you just enough to keep you invested without ever feeling insurmountable. They rely on logic and experimentation, encouraging you to test boundaries and think creatively, whether it's manipulating objects, redirecting beams of light, or using shadows to your advantage. The game keeps its mechanics fresh by constantly introducing subtle twists that evolve as you progress. Exploration is a key part of the experience. CLAIR OBSCUR invites you to pay attention to every detail in your surroundings, as the world is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. This is not a game where you can rush from point A to point B. It rewards patience and observation. Alien Isolation. I don't think I've ever played a game that kept me on the edge of my seat like this one did. You know how some horror games throw constant jump scares at you? Not here. This one's all about that slow building tension. You're literally never safe. It captures that feeling of dread from the original Alien movie perfectly. And let me tell you, the atmosphere in this game is top tier. The space station is so incredibly detailed, like straight out of the 1970s vision of the future. It has that grimy, lived-in feel, which just adds to how isolated you feel. The lighting is phenomenal too. I remember creeping through these dimly lit corridors with shadows dancing everywhere. The vibe is so good, you just feel like you're there. And that's half the reason this game works so well. It makes you feel like you're in constant danger. I think one of the coolest things is that the xenomorph isn't the only thing you have to worry about. There's other stuff happening on the station, and it really creates this sense that the world is alive. Well, maybe not alive, but dangerous. I won't spoil anything, but let's just say, some of the other encounters are almost as tense as dealing with the alien itself. Alien isolation isn't for everyone. If you don't like slower-paced games or being super stressed the whole time, maybe it's not your thing. But if you're someone who loves a good atmospheric challenge, and you appreciate a game that doesn't treat you like a kid, you're in for a treat. There's something incredibly satisfying about surviving an encounter with the alien. Portal 2, one of the smartest, funniest, and most satisfying games out there. I mean, if you've ever wondered what it's like to solve complex puzzles while being gently or not so gently insulted by an AI, this is the game to play. From the moment you wake up, you know you're in for a unique experience. You play as Chell, this silent character stuck in a strange, abandoned science facility, and your main tool is this incredible portal gun. With it, you can create 2 connected portals on certain surfaces, letting you move through them in ways that feel almost magical. The whole concept of thinking with portals is amazing because it forces you to look at puzzles in a totally different way. What I love about Portal 2 is how it gradually ramps up the challenge. At first, it's simple stuff, figuring out where to place portals to get from point A to point B. But then they throw in all these wild mechanics like tractor beams, light bridges, and these crazy gels that speed you up or make you bounce. It's like each level is teaching you to think bigger, get more creative, and really push the limits of what's possible with just portals. The best part, though, has to be the co-op mode. Portal 2 lets you team up with a friend, and it's an absolute blast. You play as 2 adorable robots, and the puzzles are designed around the idea of working together. It's hilarious, challenging, and such a great way to test your teamwork. If you're into smart puzzles, and a game that constantly surprises you, Portal 2 is an absolute must-play. Control. I remember starting it and thinking, okay, this looks interesting, but it just keeps getting weirder in the best possible way. You play as Jesse Faden, who walks into this super-secret government building called the Federal Bureau of Control, and from there, things get strange. The whole game is set inside this massive, brutalist-style building called the Oldest House, and it's full of supernatural events, shifting walls, floating people. You've got this crazy service weapon that shifts between different forms, like a pistol that can turn into a shotgun or a sniper rifle. And then there's the telekinesis. Throwing objects at enemies with your mind never gets old. I remember picking up desks, chunks of concrete, even explosive canisters, and just launching them at enemies. It's so satisfying. And as you level up, you get more abilities like levitating, creating shields, and even mind-controlling enemies. It makes every battle feel dynamic because you've got all these powers to mess around with. The game also nails the whole mind-bending thing. The environments constantly shift and change. There's this one part, the ashtray maze, that had me completely blown away. It's like this surreal, almost psychedelic level where the walls and floors are shifting, and you're just flying through it, blasting enemies, while this killer rock soundtrack plays. So yeah, Control is one of those games that feels totally unique. It's got this perfect mix of supernatural weirdness, awesome combat, and a mystery that keeps pulling you deeper. Horizon Zero Dawn. You ever play a game that completely pulls you into its world and makes you forget time exists? From the very start, it hit me with its vast open world and beautiful landscapes. It's like stepping into a future where nature and machines are in this strange yet fascinating balance. The contrast of lush forests, snowy mountains, and decaying remnants of the old world just blew me away. I'd find myself stopping, not to complete a mission, but just to take in the view. What really pulled me in was Aloy, the main character. She's strong, independent, and driven, but still relatable. Her journey to uncover the truth about her past kept me hooked, and I felt a connection with her that not many games manage to achieve. Every interaction, every choice made me feel like I was walking her path, not just controlling her through a screen. The machines in Horizon are some of the most unique enemies I've ever encountered. They're massive, unpredictable, and have this alien feel to them. yet they belong perfectly in this world. Each machine required a different approach, forcing me to think and adapt. It never felt repetitive. Instead, it kept things fresh, especially when you take down something huge like a Thunderjaw. I remember the first time I did, and it felt like a massive victory. The combat made me feel like a hunter, not just a fighter, and that added a layer of depth I really appreciated. The story also has a lot going for it. There's mystery, there's emotion, and there's this haunting sense of loss throughout the game. Metro Exodus. This game is something else. If you're into immersive worlds with deep storytelling, this one's going to grab you right from the start. I remember jumping in, and immediately, I felt like I was actually there, trudging through the post-apocalyptic Russian wasteland, feeling every bit of that bleak, yet oddly beautiful atmosphere. What's really cool about Metro Exodus is how it takes the series from the underground tunnels and opens it up to these massive open areas without losing that signature claustrophobic tension. You still get those tight, nerve-wracking moments where you're creeping through dark, creepy tunnels. But now, you also have these wide-open spaces that make you feel a sense of freedom and danger at the same time. There's something about walking through a desolate, snowy wasteland and then hearing the distant howl of a mutant that gets your heart racing. Artyom's journey is such an emotional one. He's not just trying to survive. He's out there searching for hope, for a place where humanity can rebuild. You can feel how much this means to him and his crew. That bond between them, especially with his wife Anna, really hit me. You're not just a lone wolf. You've got a family, a team that cares for each other, and that gives everything this extra layer of tension. You want to protect them, to keep them safe. You've got to constantly think about how you're using your resources. Do you craft more ammo, or do you focus on a new gas mask filter because the radiation's about to kill you? That balance adds a lot of strategy to the game. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. From the very beginning, you're dropped into this massive open world, and it's completely up to you what to do next. No hand-holding, no strict path, just pure, unfiltered exploration. One of the coolest things about Breath of the Wild is the sense of freedom. You see a mountain way off in the distance? You can climb it. You spot a random little forest on your way to a shrine? Go explore it. You might find a secret or even stumble on a side quest. And the game rewards you for being curious. Everywhere you go, there's something hidden, some surprise, some little detail that makes you feel like the developers thought of everything. And speaking of surprises, the physics and chemistry systems in this game are unreal. You can use the environment to solve puzzles in ways that feel totally unique to you. Like, if you're clever enough, you can create crazy solutions to puzzles that don't even feel right. But the game encourages that. You can even use metal weapons to attract lightning during storms or set grass on fire to create updrafts for your glider. It's like a sandbox that's just begging you to mess around and get creative. And let's not forget the combat. It's challenging, but in a really rewarding way. You don't just mindlessly hack and slash. You need to time your dodges, be aware of your surroundings, and think about your strategy. The weapon durability system is a hot topic, but honestly, it adds to that survival feel. You're encouraged to experiment with different weapons and tactics, which keeps things interesting. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage drops you into 19th century Baghdad, and let me tell you, it's gorgeous. The city feels alive, bustling with activity, narrow streets, and towering rooftops that beg to be climbed. The attention to detail here is incredible. It's like they cracked open a history book and turned it into a vibrant, living world. If you've been a fan of the series since the early days, you'll love the gameplay here. It's all about stealth, precision, and planning. No more running into a group of enemies and fighting your way out like a tank. Mirage encourages you to think like an assassin again, sneak through crowds, blend in, climb up to a vantage point, and take your shot when the time is right. It's so satisfying when a plan comes together and you get that perfect, clean assassination. The parkour feels so good. It's smooth, fluid, and makes navigating the city an absolute joy. There's nothing quite like sprinting across rooftops, vaulting over obstacles, and making a daring leap onto a narrow beam while a guard shouts, "Hey you!" from the street below. The freedom of movement is top tier, and it reminded me of why I fell in love with this series in the first place. The story is also a highlight. No spoilers, I promise, but it's tightly focused, and that's a good thing. After the sprawling epics of recent Assassin's Creed games, Mirage feels like a refreshing change of pace. It's more personal, more intimate, and it really leans into the assassin versus the system theme. You get to see the journey of Basim, Yes, that Basim, if you've played Valhalla. Mortal Kombat 1. You know how some fighting games make you feel like you're mashing buttons, hoping for the best? Not here. Mortal Kombat 1 manages to strike that perfect balance between approachable for newcomers and deep enough for the hardcore crowd. The accessibility options deserve a shout-out too. Fighting games can sometimes feel like an exclusive club where only the most dedicated players thrive, but Mortal Kombat 1 welcomes everyone. Tutorials? Check. Training modes? Double check. And the inputs for moves are forgiving enough that even your friend who's never touched a controller before can still have fun and maybe even land a killer fatality. The controls are responsive, the pacing is satisfying, and pulling off a special move feels ridiculously rewarding. And the fatalities? Without spoiling anything, of course. The creativity here is just off the charts. It's like the developers sat in a room and asked, how can we make players' jaws drop every single time? And then they delivered. It's gruesome, it's over the top, and somehow it's hilarious in that classic Mortal Kombat way. But what really keeps me coming back is the variety in gameplay. Sure, the main fights are the meat of the experience, but there's so much to explore beyond that. The game isn't just about smashing buttons in endless matches. It gives you reasons to keep playing, whether it's unlocking cool stuff or experimenting with different characters. Bottom line, jump in, throw some punches, and enjoy the chaos. Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't hold back. Demon's Souls. The world of this game is jaw-dropping, especially in the remake for the PS5. You step into this dark, eerie kingdom of Boletaria, and right away, the atmosphere pulls you in. Each area has this unique vibe, from creepy, foggy swamps to towering castles and fiery caverns. One thing that really stands out in Demon's Souls is how it doesn't hold your hand at all. There's no big tutorial here. Just you, your sword, and the mystery of Boletaria. That might sound intimidating, but honestly, it's what makes this game so memorable. You're learning as you go, and every little discovery feels like a personal victory. And when you finally figure out a tricky pattern or beat a boss that felt impossible, that's one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. And speaking of bosses, Demon's Souls has some of the best. Each one is unique, creepy, and requires you to stay on your toes and really study their moves. You'll probably get your butt kicked a few times or a dozen times, but that's okay. It's all part of the fun. Each boss fight feels like a grand event. There's this tension in the air, and you're just waiting to see what insane move they're going to throw at you next. But when you finally bring one down, the victory feels so sweet, like you've just accomplished something epic. The game's mechanics are simple, but feel just right. It's not about flashy combos or crazy powers. It's about timing, patience, and learning from every mistake. Watch Dogs Legion. This game really took the whole open-world hacking thing to another level. The first thing that hit me was the setting, London. And not just any version of London, but this near-future dystopian London where everything is under heavy surveillance, and the government is basically a dictatorship. The way they captured the city, though, it's spot on. From Big Ben to Camden Market, every corner of London feels alive, and it's just cool to explore this iconic city in a way you've never seen before. But the real hook for Legion? It's got to be that play as anyone system. Like, literally anyone you see walking down the street, you can recruit into your squad. I remember at first I thought, okay, but surely this is just a gimmick, right? Nope. You actually build a team of characters, and each one has their own backstory, abilities, and quirks. I had this old lady on my team. Seriously, a grandma. And she was walking around, slow as anything, but she had some tech skills that were unbeatable. There's just something hilarious about seeing her take down an enemy in the most casual way possible. And that's what's fun about it. Everyone you recruit adds something different to your team, and it makes you think about how you approach missions. You could be rolling with a construction worker who can call in a cargo drone to fly over buildings, or a spy with a silenced pistol and a fancy sports car. And of course, Legion is all about that hacking life. You're controlling drones, hijacking cars, hacking cameras, all with a few button presses. Mafia 2. This game hits differently. It's got this classic, almost cinematic feel to it, like you're stepping into an old mobster movie. From the moment it starts, you're drawn into this gritty 1940s and 50s world where the cars are big, the suits are sharp, and everything's just dripping with atmosphere. The setting of Empire Bay feels alive, like You can almost smell the exhaust from the cars and hear the hum of jazz coming out of a diner as you pass by. But what really gets me about Mafia 2 is the story. You're following Vito Scaletta, this guy who's just trying to make a life for himself after returning home from World War II. And you feel for the guy. He's not some untouchable, over-the-top hero. He's just a regular dude who gets sucked into this whole criminal underworld. And it's not even glamorous. Mafia 2 makes it pretty clear that this life comes with heavy consequences. The missions are top-notch too. 1 minute you're robbing a jewelry store. The next you're in this intense shootout, ducking behind cars and trading gunfire. It's got this old-school classic gangster vibe. One thing I love is how Mafia 2 doesn't overdo the open-world stuff. It's not like you're getting sidetracked with a million random activities. The game keeps its focus tight on the story, which I appreciate. It feels like every mission matters, and you're always pushing forward to see what happens next. Even though it's been years since it came out, Mafia 2 still holds up. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Ubisoft had a pretty solid reputation with the previous game, Ghost Recon Wildlands, so expectations were high for this one. But when Breakpoint dropped, it was met with a ton of criticism. People were upset with everything, from the bugs and glitches to the live service elements and microtransactions. Some felt the game had drifted too far from what made the Ghost Recon series great, tactical, squad-based military action. A lot of the backlash was around the game's focus on looter-shooter mechanics. Fans of the series weren't too happy about the addition of gear scores and loot systems, which felt more like something out of the Division rather than a tactical military shooter. That shift towards a more RPG-like system was jarring for longtime fans, and many felt it took away from the realism and immersion they loved about the franchise. Another big complaint was the lack of AI teammates at launch, which had been a staple in past Ghost Recon games. Instead, you were forced to play solo or with real players in co-op, and that left some players feeling like the experience was incomplete. But here's the thing. Ubisoft listened to the feedback. Over time, they patched the game, added new features, and really worked to improve the overall experience. AI teammates were eventually brought back, and many of the issues with bugs and balance were addressed. The game today is a much better, more polished version than it was at launch. Despite the rough start, Breakpoint offers a lot for fans of tactical shooters. HELLBLADE 2. The first HELLBLADE was all about that raw, emotional journey and its deep dive into mental health. So when the sequel came out, a lot of people were expecting the same kind of intimate experience. And while it definitely delivers on atmosphere and emotion, not everyone's on board with some of the changes. One of the big things people are talking about is the shift towards more combat. In the first game, the fighting was kind of secondary to the story. It was there, but it wasn't the main focus. With HELLBLADE 2, they've definitely ramped up the action, and some fans aren't too happy about that. They wanted more of those quiet, introspective moments that made the first game stand out. But honestly, I think the combat adds a new layer of intensity. Sure, it's more frequent, but it's still tied to Senua's emotional journey, and it makes sense within the context of the story. Another thing that stirred up some controversy is whether the game leans too heavily into its cinematic elements. There's a lot of visual spectacle in HELLBLADE 2. The graphics are insane, and the world building is next level, but some players feel like it's trying to be more of a movie than a game, which has rubbed a few people the wrong way. I get that, but at the same time, this is what HELLBLADE is all about, immersing you in this visceral, haunting world. What I love, though, is how HELLBLADE 2 stays true to its roots. Despite all these changes, it still tackles heavy themes like trauma and mental illness, and it does it with a lot of care and respect. That alone makes it stand out in today's gaming landscape. And even with more combat. The Crew 2. This is a game that feels like it was made for anyone who's ever looked at a car, plane, or boat and thought, yeah, I could probably do some wild stuff with that. It's not just about driving. It's about the thrill of being unleashed on an enormous open-world playground and turning it into your personal motorsports festival. Whether you're tearing through city streets in a hypercar, skimming over water in a speedboat, or pulling off insane aerobatics in a stunt plane. The Crew 2 doesn't just invite you to go big, it practically demands it. This game doesn't hold back when it comes to variety. One moment, you're weaving through traffic in downtown Los Angeles, and the next, you're roaring across the Mississippi River in a powerboat. And the best part? You can switch between vehicles on the fly. It's a seamless transition that adds so much personality to the experience. Want to launch off a mountain in your car, switch midair to a plane, and finish by landing in a river as a boat? The freedom here is absolutely unhinged in the best way possible. The map is massive, covering a condensed version of the United States. It's not just about the size, though. It's about how alive it feels. Highways stretch endlessly, countryside sprawls out invitingly, and cities buzz with a certain kinetic energy. Each location feels distinct, and the way the environments cater to the vehicles you're using is incredibly satisfying. Flying over the Grand Canyon or speeding across the swamps of Florida gives every type of vehicle its time to shine. Horizon Burning Shores. This expansion is everything you'd hope for and more, taking Aloy's journey into an entirely new region filled with challenges, surprises, and jaw-dropping moments. Set in a beautifully untamed area that feels wild and alive. It's all about exploring, adapting, and thriving in a world that's as dangerous as it is mesmerizing. The new landscape opens up fresh opportunities for discovery, with terrains that pushed you to think differently about how you approach traversal and combat. The highlight here is the freedom to experiment with the tools and abilities you've built up throughout the main game. The enemies in Burning Shores aren't just there to look intimidating. They're designed to test your skills in exciting ways. New machine types bring unique combat dynamics, keeping you on your toes and forcing you to adapt your strategies. The world design in Burning Shores is deeply immersive, with plenty of areas that invite exploration. Whether you're scaling cliffs, diving into the depths, or navigating open spaces, there's always something fascinating to find. Hidden treasures, mysterious locations, and cleverly placed challenges make every corner of this expansion worth exploring. The variety in the terrain ensures that no two moments feel alike, keeping the experience fresh and engaging from start to finish. The addition of new weapons and gear is another standout feature. These aren't just upgrades, they're game changers that open up creative ways to tackle enemies and solve environmental puzzles. Amnesia Rebirth. What really sets Rebirth apart is how it handles fear. You're not some invincible hero with a shotgun. You're vulnerable, fragile even. And that's what makes every decision feel so important. Do you light that match now to see what's ahead? Or do you save it for later when you might really need it? These are the kinds of choices that keep you constantly engaged. The puzzles are another highlight. They're not just there to slow you down or fill time. They're meaningful. They're tied into the world in ways that make you think, this makes sense here. It's never just about pulling a lever or finding a key. It's about understanding your surroundings, piecing things together, and figuring out how to keep moving forward while the world seems to crumble around you. You'll go from tight, claustrophobic spaces that make you feel like the walls are closing in to wide, open areas that somehow manage to feel even more terrifying because of how exposed you are. It keeps you guessing and constantly on edge, never knowing what's waiting for you around the corner or in the dark. But here's the kicker. Rebirth isn't just about scaring you. It's about pulling you into an experience where the fear feels earned. It's a game that challenges you to face the unknown, to confront your own unease, and to push forward even when everything in you is screaming to turn back. So, if you're looking for a horror game that goes beyond the surface, that doesn't just want to startle you, but truly unsettle you, Amnesia Rebirth is absolutely worth your time. Fallout 76. I know this game got quite a bit of heat when it first came out, but after all the updates and expansions, it's a totally different experience now. Trust me, Bethesda really put in the work here, and it shows. First off, if you're into Fallout for the whole post-apocalyptic vibe, Fallout 76 still nails that perfectly. You're out there exploring the ruins of West Virginia, which is way more beautiful than I expected in an end-of-the-world kind of way. The landscapes are huge and varied, with misty forests, eerie bogs, and even mountainous areas where you'll get a stunning view of the wasteland. Honestly, the setting is a character in itself. And yes, it's multiplayer, meaning you'll run into other players as you explore. But don't worry, it's not like some chaotic battle royale or anything. You can still choose to play mostly on your own, focus on your story quests, or even just wander around, soaking in the atmosphere. But having others around adds this cool element of unpredictability, like maybe you're all just hanging out around a campfire, or someone pops up to trade supplies. It makes the world feel more alive, which is pretty rare in the Fallout series. Speaking of camps, let's talk camp building, which might be one of my favorite parts of the game. You can set up your own little homestead anywhere in the wilderness, and then customize it however you want. I mean, some people have made full-on mansions out there, and I'm over here just trying to get my campfire going. It's like a mix of Fallout survival with Sims creativity. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Now, this is a game that doesn't hold back. From the moment you start, it's full throttle, no apologies. The story picks up right after the first one, and let me tell you, they dive straight into the madness. You've got BJ Blazkowicz, still the ultimate Nazi killing machine, but now even more battle-worn and broken, both physically and mentally. And yet, he's still got that fire. He's out for blood, but there's this deeper emotional side to him in this game that really surprised me. The gunplay is pure chaos in the best way. The weapons are so satisfying, and when you dual-wield two massive guns, it's like you're a one-man army mowing down everything in your path. The combat is fast, brutal, and it just feels good. Every shot has impact. And the enemies don't just drop. They explode into chunks when you hit them right. It's gloriously over the top, and I loved every second of it. Oh, and let's talk about the villains. Frau Engel, she's terrifying. She's not just some generic evil figure. She's genuinely unsettling, with this twisted obsession and cruelty that makes her a perfect antagonist. You really want to take her down, and that's what drives you forward. The way the game builds tension between you and her is brilliant, and every time she shows up, you know things are about to get wild. The characters are fantastic. Whether it's old friends from the Resistance or new allies you meet along the way, everyone's got their own personality, and it makes you care about them. Some scenes had me laughing, others had me really thinking. The Evil Within 2. If you've played the first one, you know it's already got that creepy, nightmarish vibe, but this sequel, it takes things to a whole new level. How it blends open-world elements with that tight, survival horror tension. You've got more freedom to explore this time, but it never feels too safe. Even in the open areas, there's this constant sense of dread, like something could jump out at you at any moment. And trust me, the game knows how to play with your nerves. The enemies in this game are wild. Some of the creature designs are just pure nightmare fuel, like that multi-limbed thing guardian. Still gives me the creeps just thinking about it. And don't even get me started on the bosses. Every encounter feels intense and nerve-wracking, especially since resources are still pretty scarce. You've got to be smart about when to fight and when to sneak around. The open areas give you more options for how to approach situations, which I really liked. Sometimes it felt satisfying to sneak by enemies unnoticed, and other times you'd have no choice but to go guns blazing. The game forces you to be adaptable. The story is solid too. It's got that psychological horror aspect that really messes with your head, but it also wraps up a lot of the loose ends from the first game in a satisfying way. And I've got to say, there are some twists in there that genuinely shocked me. It's not just about the scares. It's a good narrative experience too. And of course, the crafting system is back, so you can make your own ammo and gear. Hitman World of Assassination, a game where the phrase, plan your work your plan, is both your mantra and your challenge. You're not just playing as Agent 47, you become the ultimate bald-headed assassin, blending into environments like a shadow while orchestrating some of the most ingenious takedowns you can dream up. You're thrust into a series of sprawling, intricately designed locations where your goal is to eliminate high-value targets. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. The brilliance of Hitman lies in the how. Sure, you can go in guns blazing, but where's the fun in that? This game dares you to be patient, to observe, and to use your imagination. It's about transforming everyday objects into tools of chaos, turning a muffin into a weapon or a chandelier into your silent accomplice. Each mission gives you dozens of ways to accomplish your goal, and none of them are wrong. Want to disguise yourself as a waiter and poison someone's drink? Go for it. Feel like triggering a Rube Goldberg chain reaction of destruction? Absolutely. Prefer to be the ghost who no one ever saw coming? That's valid too. The sheer number of possibilities is overwhelming, in the best way possible. But don't think this is all smooth sailing. Hitman loves to keep you on your toes. Plans go wrong. Guards get suspicious. NPCs wander into places they absolutely shouldn't be. And that's where the game really shines, when you're forced to improvise. Oh, and the replayability? Insane. It Takes Two. It's easily one of the most creative co-op experiences I've ever played. From the very start, you realize that it's not your typical platformer. It's all about teamwork. Whether you're playing with a friend, partner, or even someone you just met, the whole experience becomes this shared journey that's honestly so much fun. The level design is incredible. Every single level is packed with unique mechanics that are specific to that environment. 1 minute, you're in a garden where one player's watering plants while the other's chopping through obstacles. The next, you're in a clock tower, messing with time itself. It's never repetitive because each new area throws something different at you. The gameplay just keeps evolving. One of my favorite sections was when one of us could fly on this paper airplane while the other navigated obstacles on the ground. It's all about trust and coordination. What I also really appreciate is how the game balances difficulty. It's not too hard, but it does require you to think and communicate. There were moments where my co-op partner and I would be stuck for a minute, but it always felt rewarding when we figured it out together. You're constantly learning how to rely on each other's strengths, which is such a fun way to approach co-op. Honestly, what really stands out to me about It Takes Two is just how much fun it is. I mean, you're not just playing a game, you're sharing this experience with someone else, and you're both equally important to making it through the story. Whether you're laughing at the absurd situations or getting a little competitive with the mini-games. Dying Light 2, another game that stumbled out of the gate, but is actually pretty awesome when you take a closer look. So, when Dying Light 2 was first announced, people were hyped. The original Dying Light was a sleeper hit, with its intense parkour system and brutal combat, so expectations were sky high for the sequel. But then, delays happened. Lots of them. And with every delay, the excitement started turning into skepticism. When it finally launched in 2022, some people felt like it didn't quite live up to the years of anticipation, and there was plenty of chatter about bugs and performance issues, which, to be fair, did hurt its reputation right out of the gate. But here's the thing. Once you actually dive into Dying Light 2, you realize there's a ton to love about this game. First off, the parkour system is still one of the best in gaming. Running, jumping, and swinging through the city of Villador feels fluid and rewarding. They took what worked in the original and just cranked it up a notch. You really feel like you're flying through this post-apocalyptic world, dodging zombies and hopping between rooftops. The combat? Absolutely brutal. Smacking zombies and bandits with improvised weapons, drop-kicking them off rooftops. It never gets old. Plus, the day-night cycle adds a whole other layer of tension. The zombies are slow and manageable during the day. But at night, man, they become terrifying. It's a heart-pounding experience when you're scrambling to find shelter as the sun goes down and the city gets overrun. Forza Horizon 5. Even if you're not a racing game person, trust me, you'll still find something to love here. It's like a love letter to cars, exploration, and just having a good time behind the wheel. Remember when you used to race toy cars around your living room? Making up little adventures as you went. Forza Horizon 5 brings that same energy, but cranks it up to 11. It's not just about winning races, though that's fun too. It's about playing. The freedom you have to do whatever you want is amazing. They've got everything from souped-up classics to hypercars that look like they belong in a sci-fi movie. And the customization. You can tweak everything. Paint jobs, performance, even little decals. It's like a car nerd's dream come true. But don't worry, you don't have to be a gearhead to enjoy it. The game does a great job of keeping things accessible, whether you're a casual player or a hardcore racer. The controls are just buttery smooth, and the way each car handles feels unique. Want to go off-roading in a big, beefy truck? Go for it. Prefer zipping through city streets in a sleek sports car? Done. It's not just racing, it's an experience. And the best part? You don't even have to race if you don't want to. There are stunt challenges, speed traps, exploration events. It's like a big automotive playground. And the seasonal changes? Genius. The world evolves over time. So 1 week, you might be racing in dry deserts, and the next, you're dealing with torrential rain. It keeps things fresh and gives you an excuse to keep coming back. Stalker 2. So, you know how some games make you feel like you're surviving? Like, really surviving? That's Stalker 2 in a nutshell. The zone is the star of the show. It's haunting, it's dangerous, and it's unpredictable. What I love most is how it doesn't hold your hand. You're thrown into this place, and you just have to figure it out. It's like the game is saying, hey, good luck out there, buddy. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so satisfying. It's all about exploration, taking risks, and making decisions that can completely change your experience. If you've played the original Stalker games, you already know this isn't your typical shoot and loot affair. You're scavenging, crafting, and constantly managing your resources. And it feels real. Ammo isn't something you take for granted. Food and medical supplies, you'll cherish them like gold. And don't even get me started on the anomalies. These bizarre, deadly phenomena scattered across the zone add this layer of tension that keeps you on edge at all times. Every step you take feels like it matters. The NPCs you encounter in Stalker 2 are not just background noise. They feel like real people trying to survive, just like you. Some might help you, some might not. And figuring out who to trust is all part of the journey. If you love a good challenge, or if you just want to experience something truly unique, Stalker 2 needs to be on your radar. It's not just a sequel, it's a love letter to fans of the series and a bold step forward into a new generation of gaming. CUPHEAD. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand. Instead, it hands you a pair of gloves and says, "All right, let's see what you've got." So, what's the deal with CUPHEAD? Well, it's all about boss battles. Big, bold, over-the-top showdowns that'll push your skills to the limit. Each encounter is completely unique, filled with crazy attacks, patterns you have to learn, and that sweet moment of triumph when you finally get it right. And trust me, those victories feel earned. This game doesn't hand them out like candy. The gameplay is fast, precise, and oh so satisfying. You'll be dodging, jumping, and shooting your way through a series of increasingly difficult fights, all while trying to keep track of what's happening on screen. And there's a lot happening on screen. But that's part of the fun. It's all about staying focused, learning the patterns, and figuring out how to outsmart each boss. One thing that really stands out is the variety. You're not just fighting the same type of boss over and over again. Each one feels like its own mini-event, with unique designs and attacks that keep you on your toes. One minute, you're dodging projectiles in a traditional platforming setup, and the next, you're flying through the air in a shoot-'em-up. It's this constant change of pace that keeps the game so engaging. And let's not forget about the co-op mode. Playing with a friend adds a whole new dynamic to the chaos, as you both work together to take down these larger-than-life foes. It's teamwork at its most frantic and fun. No Man's Sky, one of the most controversial video game redemption stories out there. When this game first launched, it got slammed hard, like really hard. People were furious because they felt like they were promised the universe, literally, and what they got didn't live up to all the hype. You know how it is when a game gets hyped beyond belief, right? Expectations just go through the roof. The biggest issues at launch were things like missing features, limited multiplayer options, and overall a lack of the promised living, breathing universe that players thought they'd get. It was a huge deal at the time. Everyone was like, where are the massive space battles? Where's all the depth? Players felt misled, and it led to some pretty angry reviews. No Man's Sky became the poster child for overpromised and underdelivered games. But here's the crazy part. Instead of throwing in the towel, the developers at Hello Games just kept working on it. They didn't give up. And over time, they transformed the game into something truly special. Seriously, the updates have been absolutely massive. They kept adding the features players were hoping for, like base building, expanded multiplayer, better exploration mechanics, and more dynamic planets. Now, it's packed with content, and it's a totally different experience from what people saw at launch. It's honestly one of the most positive turnarounds in gaming. It went from being the game everyone loved to hate, to becoming a beloved space exploration game with a really dedicated fanbase. Red Dead Redemption 2, a game that absolutely dominated conversations when it came out, but somehow didn't win Game of the Year. And I get it, God of War was a beast in 2018. But let's be honest, Red Dead Redemption 2 was something else. This was a game that didn't just tell a story, it lived and breathed one. The world Rockstar created in Red Dead Redemption 2 was so immersive, it felt like the Old West was right there in front of you. And the detail? Insane. You could spend hours just wandering around, hunting, fishing, getting into random encounters. And every part of it felt like it was happening in real time. Rockstar nailed the atmosphere, from the dynamic weather to how towns felt alive. Even your horse had personality. People get so attached to their horses like it's a real companion. Now, the story is where the game really shines. Arthur Morgan? Easily one of the most complex, well-written characters in gaming. His whole journey of redemption, loyalty, and questioning his place in the gang gave players an emotional roller coaster. The game nailed that perfect blend of realism and fun. The way the world reacts to your choices. Whether you're being honorable or wreaking havoc, makes every playthrough feel personal and unique. In the end, Red Dead Redemption 2 deserved all the praise and then some. It was more than just a game. It was an experience. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year is still something people talk about, because it left such a lasting impact. Dead Island 2. It's one of those games that after being in development for so long, you're just happy it finally exists. If you're into zombie games, this one is like a bloody sun-soaked vacation, where you can let loose and hack, slash, and smash your way through hordes of the undead. What's cool about it is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. The game knows exactly what it is, a fun, over-the-top zombie slasher set in sunny California. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. First off, the setting is great. Instead of a gloomy, post-apocalyptic wasteland, Dead Island 2 takes place in a colorful, almost absurdly beautiful version of Los Angeles. They call it Hell-A, and the contrast between the bright, glamorous world of Hollywood and the grotesque, decaying zombies is just awesome. You're running through luxury mansions, beaches, and fancy neighborhoods, all while the city crumbles around you. It's like you're on a demented version of a sightseeing tour. The zombies themselves come in all shapes and sizes, and they're not pushovers. You've got your standard walkers, but there are also faster, more aggressive types, like runners and screamers who can call for reinforcements. Some are armored, others are on fire or covered in acid, and each type forces you to adjust your tactics. It keeps you on your toes and makes the combat feel fresh. You're constantly adapting and finding new ways to take them down, whether it's by using environmental traps, setting them on fire, or just going for headshots. Resident Evil 7. One of the coolest things about the game is how immersive it feels. They went with a first-person perspective, which, let me tell you, makes everything so much scarier. It's like you're in the middle of a horror movie, and you're the main character. And they nailed that gritty, creepy vibe. The sound design is just incredible, with creaky floors, distant footsteps, and other little sounds that keep you on edge. It really pulls you into the experience. You're exploring this creepy, run-down mansion, and right away, you can feel the game practically daring you to go deeper. And trust me, every corner you turn is filled with suspense. It's got that classic, what's around the next corner feel, where you're bracing yourself for something terrifying. I found myself holding my breath more than a few times. Combat-wise, it's got that classic Resident Evil survival feel. You're not overloaded with ammo, so every bullet counts, and you have to make careful decisions. It's a nice balance of horror and action, where you're fighting to survive, but still constantly feeling vulnerable. And the enemies? Let's just say they're some of the creepiest in the series. The puzzles are a fun throwback too. They're clever, without being overwhelming, and they add that classic Resident Evil touch to the game. You're searching for keys, unlocking doors, and solving riddles, which all just adds to the sense of discovery and dread. And honestly, the Baker family. They are some of the most memorable characters in horror gaming. Period. Each encounter with them is just nerve-wracking, and you never know what they'll do next. Nightingale. Without giving too much away, Nightingale is set in an alternate Victorian-inspired universe where portals connect you to countless magical realms. These aren't just ordinary portals either. Each one opens up a unique, handcrafted world full of surprises. Whether it's dense forests, eerie swamps, or towering mountains, every realm feels like a whole new adventure waiting to happen. At its heart, Nightingale is a survival game. But it's so much more than that. Sure, you'll be gathering resources, crafting tools, and building shelters, but it never feels repetitive or grindy. The game constantly rewards your curiosity. Wander off the beaten path, and you might stumble upon a hidden ruin, a bizarre creature, or a resource you didn't even know existed. You'll face all kinds of strange and otherworldly beings, from towering giants to mischievous fairies. Each encounter feels unique, and sometimes running is just as valid an option as fighting. There's this constant sense of tension and wonder as you explore, never quite knowing what's around the next corner. One of the coolest aspects of the game is the crafting system. It's deep, but not overwhelming, which is a hard balance to strike. You can craft everything from tools and weapons to elaborate structures. And let me tell you, building in this game is a treat. The structures you can create aren't just functional. They're gorgeous. Whether you're putting together a humble cabin or a sprawling Victorian estate, it always feels satisfying and personal. Infamous Second Son. It's such a great pick when looking back at favorite games, especially after all these years. It's one of those games that might not always get mentioned in the big best-of-all-time list, but for those who played it, it really leaves a lasting impression. The game came out as one of the earlier titles for the PS4, and honestly, it still holds up really well. You step into the shoes of Delson Rowe, a rebellious guy who suddenly gets these insane superpowers. What I love about the game is how good it feels to actually use those powers. Whether you're running up buildings, gliding through the air, or just wrecking shop with your abilities, the movement and action feel super smooth and fun. The game absolutely nails that sense of power, which, let's face it, is what we're all here for in a superhero-style game. Seattle is the backdrop for all the action, and they did such a good job with the city's vibe. It's not a carbon copy of the real Seattle, but it's got enough personality to feel alive, and the way the environment changes based on your actions is a nice touch. That whole dynamic, where your choices matter, whether you want to be a hero or lean into a more destructive, rebellious path, adds a layer of replayability. And honestly, both paths are equally fun. Infamous Second Son really nails that feeling of freedom, and the pacing keeps you engaged from start to finish. It's one of those games where you can easily lose hours just exploring, testing out your powers, and getting into epic showdowns with the game's enemies. Atomic Heart, Trapped in Limbo DLC. If you thought the base game was a wild ride with its retro-futuristic chaos and unpredictable twists, then buckle up, because this DLC takes things into a whole new realm of experimentation and survival. Trapped in Limbo drops you into a fragmented, almost dreamlike scenario. It's not your typical open-world exploration anymore. Instead, you're thrown into a confined, eerie space where survival and adaptability become your top priorities. The game doesn't hold your hand, it just points you toward the chaos and says, good luck figuring this out. And honestly, that's part of the charm. The gameplay in this DLC is where it really shines. It leans heavily into puzzle solving and environmental exploration. Think of it as less run and gun, and more stop, think, and figure out how to not get shredded by whatever that is. Every room you enter feels like it has a purpose, whether it's testing your reflexes, challenging your problem-solving skills, or just messing with your head. And trust me, the game loves to mess with your head. One of the coolest things about Trapped in Limbo is how it plays with your expectations. Just when you think you've got a handle on things, the game throws in a curveball. Whether it's a new mechanic, an unexpected challenge, or just an unsettling moment that makes you stop and wonder, what is happening here? It keeps you on your toes in the best way possible. Combat, of course, makes a return, but it feels more strategic this time around. Bloodborne. It absolutely deserved to win Game of the Year in 2015, but didn't quite get the crown. I mean, this game was From Software at its peak, delivering an intense gothic nightmare of a world that fans still rave about to this day. It's wild to think that something this groundbreaking didn't take home the big award. First off, the atmosphere in Bloodborne, unreal. Yharnam was this dark, twisted Victorian city filled with werewolves, cosmic horrors, and nightmare creatures that just kept you on edge the entire time. The design of the world was so hauntingly beautiful, with that classic From Software touch, where every alley and hidden path had a story to tell. The game didn't hold your hand either, which was part of its charm. You had to figure everything out on your own, from the lore to the mechanics. And let's talk about that combat system. Bloodborne took the typical slow, methodical Souls formula and made it fast and aggressive. You couldn't just hang back and wait. The game literally rewarded you for going on the offense with that regain system. If you got hit, you had a window to hit back and regain your health, which encouraged players to stay in the fight instead of running away. It was like Dark Souls on adrenaline. But here's the thing, Bloodborne came out the same year as The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and that's where things get tricky. The Witcher 3 swept most of the awards that year, and while it was undoubtedly a great game, a lot of people felt like Bloodborne was overshadowed because of that. But for those who played it, Bloodborne was a masterpiece. Gears 5. Even if you're new to the Gears series, trust me, Gears 5 is an amazing place to jump in. It's got everything you'd want in a blockbuster game, great characters, intense firefights, and a world that's equal parts beautiful and brutal. The combat in Gears 5 feels incredibly smooth, and every gunfight has that intense, cover-based strategy that makes Gears so satisfying. Popping out from cover, landing that perfect headshot, or getting up close and personal with the Lancer's chainsaw never gets old. There's something just downright satisfying about how combat feels here. Each weapon has a unique kick to it, so you're never just mindlessly firing away. It's all about timing and positioning. Plus, with the addition of Jack, your handy little drone buddy, you get some new abilities that mix things up in fun ways. He can cloak you, zap enemies, and even fetch items, so he's a true lifesaver in tight spots. And let's take a second to appreciate the world. Gears 5 introduces these open-world sections where you can explore on this sweet vehicle called the Skiff. Just zipping across the snowy tundra or the desert sands is a vibe all on its own. The world feels alive and dynamic, with lots of cool, hidden places to discover. It's not exactly a fully open world, but it's enough to let you roam around and soak in the atmosphere, and it really breaks up the action nicely. You're not just going from one big fight to the next. You actually have time to breathe, explore, and take in some amazing views. The story here actually has some serious depth. Little Nightmares 2. From the moment you step into its eerie, twisted world, you know you're in for a wild ride. If you enjoyed the first game, this one takes everything that made Little Nightmares so great and cranks it up a notch. The atmosphere is even more disturbing, the puzzles are more challenging, and the story, while still cryptic, pulls you deeper into this unsettling nightmare realm. You play as Mono, a new character, but you're not alone. 6. The protagonist from the first game is there with you, and having that companion dynamic adds a new layer to the gameplay. It's cool how the game makes you rely on each other to get through the twisted environments. You'll need to work together to solve puzzles, escape enemies, and navigate the nightmarish world around you. It's not a co-op game, but that teamwork element feels fresh and gives you a stronger emotional connection to the characters. The world in Little Nightmares 2 is just as unsettling as you'd expect. It's full of grotesque, distorted creatures that'll send shivers down your spine. The design of the enemies is one of the game's strongest points. Each one is creepier than the last, and the way they move and interact with the environment keeps you on edge the whole time. There's a constant feeling of being hunted, which makes every encounter feel tense and nerve-wracking. What's really great about the game is how it balances those intense chase scenes with quieter, more atmospheric moments. You'll go from heart-pounding sequences where you're being chased by terrifying enemies. BioShock. It changes the way you think about storytelling in video games. It's set in Rapture, this underwater city that was meant to be a utopia. But when you arrive, things have clearly gone very, very wrong. From the moment you step out of that bathysphere and see the city for the first time, you know you're in for something special. The atmosphere is just dripping with tension and mystery, and it pulls you in immediately. The story is a masterpiece. Without getting into spoilers, let's just say that it's filled with twists and turns that keep you hooked the entire way. And the way the game tackles themes of power, control, and free will, it's on another level. The characters, like Andrew Ryan, are unforgettable. With some of the most iconic lines in gaming history, you're constantly questioning what's really going on, and by the time you get to the big reveal, it's absolutely mind-blowing. The combination of guns and plasmids gives you a ton of variety in combat. You're not just shooting enemies, you're using all sorts of powers like shooting electricity, freezing foes, or even setting them on fire. The game gives you so many ways to approach every situation, and that makes each encounter feel fresh. Plus, there are the Big Daddies, these towering, armored monsters that protect the little sisters. Every fight with them feels like a boss battle, and it's always intense. The moral choices in the game are another standout feature. You can choose to either save or harvest the little sisters, and those decisions have a real impact on how the game unfolds. Lies of P. It's one of those games that takes a classic story and flips it into something totally unexpected. I mean, a dark, twisted version of Pinocchio? Who saw that coming? From the moment I started playing, I knew this wasn't going to be the fairy tale we all grew up with. Instead, it throws you into this grim, steampunk world where everything feels eerie and dangerous. The atmosphere is on point. There's this constant tension in the air, like you're never quite safe, even when you're just walking through a quiet alley. The game wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and if you've played Bloodborne or Dark Souls, you'll feel right at home here. The combat is that familiar, deliberate style, where every swing of your weapon matters, and timing is everything. But Lies of P adds its own twist, with the weapon customization system. You can mix and match blades and handles to create your own combos, which gives you a ton of freedom to experiment with different builds. It's honestly so satisfying when you find a combination that just clicks with your playstyle. The enemies are no joke. Each one feels like a real threat, and you can't just rush in and expect to button mash your way through. You've got to be patient, learn their patterns, and strike when the moment is right. And the bosses? They're some of the most intense encounters I've had in a while. Every time I thought I was getting the hang of things, a new boss would come along and completely wreck me. But in the best way. It's that feeling of frustration followed by pure joy when you finally take them down. If you're into challenging combat, Lies of P is definitely worth your time. Far Cry 4. It's one of those games that really sticks with you. Right from the start, you're thrown into this beautiful yet chaotic Himalayan country called Kyrat, and boom, there's Pagan Min, the villain you'll love to hate. He's charming in the most unsettling way, and I just couldn't get enough of his weird charisma. Honestly, he steals the show every time he's on screen. But beyond the story, what really drew me in was Kyrat itself. The world is just stunning. You've got these towering mountains, lush valleys, rivers, and temples scattered everywhere. I found myself getting lost in the world, not just doing missions, but just exploring, climbing cliffs, gliding off with a wingsuit, or hunting animals to upgrade my gear. It's one of those open-world games where every corner has something to discover, and it just makes the world feel alive. Now, the gameplay is so fun. You can tackle situations however you want, and for me, that meant switching between stealthy bow kills and, riding elephants into enemy outposts like a madman. Seriously, who doesn't love charging through a camp on an elephant? And the wildlife itself adds a whole other level of unpredictability. I've lost count of how many times I was sneaking up on an enemy, only for a tiger or bear to crash the party and wreak havoc. The missions are great too, especially the ones involving the Golden Path. You get to make decisions that affect the revolution you're part of, and they're not always black and white. I liked that it made you think about the consequences. All in all, Far Cry 4 is just packed with stuff to do. Sniper Elite 5, a game that didn't exactly get the warmest reception from everyone when it launched. Now, if you've played any of the previous Sniper Elite games, you know what you're getting into. Tactical, long-range shooting, and those signature X-ray kill cams that are both brutal and weirdly satisfying. But when Sniper Elite 5 dropped, some people weren't all that impressed, and it ended up getting a bit of hate. One of the main complaints people had was that it didn't feel all that different from Sniper Elite 4. Some players were expecting a bigger leap forward in terms of gameplay and mechanics, but instead, they got more of the same. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you love the formula, but for some, it felt like the game was playing it too safe. People wanted more innovation, and when they didn't get it, the criticism started rolling in. Another controversial aspect is the game's pacing. Sniper Elite 5 is all about slow, methodical gameplay. You're sneaking around, scouting enemies, lining up the perfect shot. It's a thinking person's shooter. But not everyone's down for that kind of experience. But here's the thing. Sniper Elite 5 still absolutely nails what makes the series fun. The maps are massive and give you so many ways to approach your objectives. Whether you want to go in guns blazing or take a more stealthy route, the game gives you that freedom. Also, let's not forget those kill cams. People can criticize the game all they want, but there's nothing quite like watching a perfectly placed shot rip through an enemy's organs in slow motion. Next we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game is like every Star Wars fan's dream come to life. Seriously, if you've ever imagined wielding a lightsaber, dodging blaster shots, or facing off against terrifying Sith enemies, Fallen Order is the game for you. It just pulls you in and makes you feel like a Jedi in training, and it's just so much fun. This game takes you all over the Star Wars galaxy, from lush forests to crumbling ancient ruins, and everything in between. Each planet has its own feel, its own mysteries, and its own set of enemies and challenges. There's this amazing sense of adventure as you move from planet to planet, uncovering secrets, exploring caves, and finding new paths. And the level design is a blast. It's got that classic Metroidvania vibe, where you keep discovering new abilities that let you access areas you couldn't reach before. You're constantly rewarded for exploring and backtracking, which just makes the whole journey so satisfying. Swinging a lightsaber in Fallen Order feels right. There's a weight to it, and when you deflect a blaster bolt back at a stormtrooper, pure joy. The combat strikes this perfect balance between fun and challenging. It's not button mashing. You actually have to time your attacks, parries, and dodges to succeed, which makes every encounter feel intense and meaningful. Plus, as you go along, you get to customize your lightsaber. You can pick different colors, hilts, and other parts to make it feel like your weapon, which is just such a cool touch. Fallen Order has an incredible story. The Division 2. It's like someone took the best parts of a cover-based shooter, mashed them up with RPG elements, and then dropped it all into a beautifully detailed, post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. So the setup is simple. The world's gone sideways, and it's your job to bring some order to the chaos. You're an agent of the Division, a group of super-trained operatives trying to hold everything together. But honestly, the real fun isn't in saving the day. It's in exploring, strategizing, and slowly building yourself into an unstoppable force of nature. The game is all about cover-based strategy here. Running into a fight, guns blazing? Yeah, good luck with that. Instead, you're ducking behind cars, flanking enemies, and figuring out how to use your gadgets to outsmart the other side. And those gadgets? Absolute lifesavers. Turrets, drones, seeker mines. You've got a whole arsenal of futuristic toys to mess with, and they're all ridiculously fun to use. The enemies aren't just bullet sponges either. They're smart. They'll flank you, use cover, and coordinate to take you down. There's a real sense of satisfaction when you clear an area because you earned it. Every firefight feels intense and rewarding, especially when you're playing with friends. Speaking of which, co-op is where this game truly shines. Rolling into a mission with your squad, calling out targets and covering each other's backs. It's peak teamwork. Plus, there's something hilarious about your buddy panicking over the comms while you're casually tossing a healing grenade their way. Final Fantasy VII Remake. This game took one of the most iconic RPGs of all time and flipped it in the best way possible. It was a love letter to fans of the original, while also introducing a whole new generation to the world of Final Fantasy VII. Honestly, it not winning Game of the Year still feels like a bit of a robbery. First off, the remake was more than just a visual upgrade. Yes, the graphics were jaw-dropping. Midgar looked absolutely incredible, from the towering structures of Shinra to the gritty streets of the slums. But it was the way they expanded the story that really stood out. Characters like Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, who were barely more than side characters in the original, suddenly had fleshed-out backstories and personalities. It made you care about them in a way you just couldn't before, which made certain story moments hit even harder. The combat was another huge change. Gone were the strict turn-based mechanics, replaced with this hybrid system that mixed action and strategy. You could hack and slash through enemies in real time, but still slow things down to issue commands, use spells, or unleash limit breaks. It was the perfect blend of old and new, catering to both fans of traditional JRPGs and those who preferred more modern action RPG mechanics. Another reason it might have missed out on Game of the Year is that 2020 was a crazy year for games. The Last of Us Part 2 took home the big prize, and while that game had its own controversies, it was a narrative and technical powerhouse. Yakuza 0. If you haven't played Yakuza 0 yet, you're seriously missing out. This game is a wild ride from start to finish, blending an intense crime drama with some of the most hilarious and offbeat side content you'll ever see. It's a prequel to the Yakuza series, diving deep into the backstories of Kazuma Kiryu and Goro Majima, two of the most beloved characters in gaming. What makes Yakuza 0 stand out is its balance between serious storytelling and wacky, fun gameplay. The main plot is filled with twists and turns, focusing on Kiryu's involvement in a real estate war that puts him at odds with the Yakuza and Majima's quest to regain his honor within the underworld. Both storylines are gripping, emotional, and will keep you hooked from start to finish. But where Yakuza 0 really shines is in all the insane side activities you can dive into. You can do everything from singing karaoke and disco dancing to managing a cabaret club or dominating the real estate market. It's packed with content, and you'll never be bored exploring the many things this world has to offer. One minute you're locked in a dramatic fistfight, and the next you're crushing it at karaoke or solving the most bizarre side quests you can imagine. The combat is fast-paced and a lot of fun. Both Kiryu and Majima have multiple fighting styles, which you can switch between in real time. It gives you a ton of options for how to take down enemies, and the combat is packed with stylish, over-the-top moves. Monster Hunter World, a game that's all about epic hunts, incredible creatures, and just a whole lot of fun. If you've ever wanted to feel like the ultimate hunter, taking down massive, fantastical beasts with a giant sword, or hammer, or bow, or even a bagpipe, then this game is calling your name. And trust me, once you start, it's hard to put down. The combat in Monster Hunter World is intense, but in the best way possible. You've got so many weapons to choose from, each with its own feel and playstyle. There's something for everyone, Whether you want to get up close and personal with a giant sword, keep your distance with a bow, or support your friends with a hunting horn, it's all there. Each weapon has its own learning curve, but mastering one feels incredibly rewarding, and the game doesn't rush you. You can spend hours just getting comfortable with different weapons and finding out which one really clicks for you. The best part about hunting, though, is that it's not just a straightforward swing till it drops kind of deal. You've got to pay attention to the monster's movements, study its behavior, and figure out when it's vulnerable. Every hunt is like a puzzle, and it's up to you to figure out how to take down each monster. It's challenging, but never frustrating, and every victory feels earned. You'll find yourself thinking, okay, maybe just one more hunt, over and over again. The monsters themselves are really the stars here. Each one is so unique, with its own behaviors, attack patterns, and quirks. The Order 1886. I know it got mixed reviews when it came out, but honestly I think it's super underrated. It's like every single thing from the cobblestone streets to the smoke-filled taverns feels alive. You can really see how much love went into building that world. The steampunk vibe is also really cool. You've got this mix of old-school Victorian aesthetic with futuristic tech, like those crazy weapons that Nikola Tesla himself designed. The thermite rifle, for example, is just so satisfying to use. You shoot clouds of thermite at enemies, and then light it up with a flare, setting everything ablaze. It's so over the top, but in the best way possible. And the story? It's actually pretty engaging. You're part of this ancient order of knights tasked with keeping the peace in London, but things get real complicated, especially with the introduction of half-breeds, like werewolves, and other supernatural threats. Plus, the way it blends history with fantasy, that was a fun twist for me. Sir Galahad, the main character, has this gruff, no-nonsense attitude that really pulls you into the whole mystery and intrigue of the game. I liked how he's conflicted, dealing with betrayal and questioning everything around him. It gave the game more emotional depth than I expected. The gunplay is solid too. It's not a massive, open-world shooter, but for a more linear experience, the mechanics work great. Each weapon feels unique, and the cover system is smooth. And those cinematic quick-time events, I know some people aren't fans of QTEs, but here they blend so well with the action. It feels more like you're playing through a movie. Dead Space Remake, a game that completely revitalized a classic survival horror experience and honestly deserved a shot at Game of the Year. The original Dead Space was already a masterpiece, but the remake took it to another level, with modern graphics, tighter gameplay, and some amazing quality-of-life improvements. It was like stepping back into a nightmare, but with 4K visuals, and even more horrifying details. First off, the atmosphere in the Dead Space remake was next level. The USG Ishimura felt more alive, and dead, than ever. Every creak, every shadow, and every flickering light just added to that sense of dread. The developers did an incredible job preserving what made the original so terrifying, while also cranking up the immersion. They rebuilt the whole game from the ground up, and it showed in how polished the environments were. The lighting alone made certain sections feel way scarier than before, like you're always one step away from something terrible. But here's the thing. While the Dead Space remake was stunning and faithful to its source material, some people argued that it didn't do enough to push the genre forward, which is probably why it didn't take home the Game of the Year trophy. It was a fantastic remake, but it stayed close to the original's formula, which, for some, felt more like a tribute than a bold new experience. But here's the bottom line. The Dead Space remake did exactly what it set out to do, remind us why this franchise is one of the best in survival horror. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that it was one of the most polished and terrifying games of 2023. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. The moment you step into the new content, it feels different, like you've entered a darker, stranger, and somehow even more intimidating part of the world. If the lands between were a fever dream, Shadow of the Erdtree is a full-on nightmare, but, like, the kind you don't want to wake up from because it's just too cool. Combat is as tight and brutal as ever. Whether you're a die-hard melee player, a magic enthusiast, or a mix of both, there are new weapons, spells, and builds to experiment with. I found myself tweaking my character constantly, trying out new strategies for every encounter. It's that classic From Software loop of getting crushed, learning, adjusting, and finally triumphing that makes the whole experience so addictive. And the bosses? Let's just say they're not here to play. They're here to humble you, to make you question every decision you've ever made as a gamer. But at the same time, they're incredible. Each one feels like its own mini-story, with designs and movesets that are as much a spectacle as they are a challenge. There's nothing quite like the adrenaline rush of finally figuring out that perfect dodge timing or landing the killing blow after a 15-minute duel. It's frustrating in the best way possible. But it's not just about the bosses. The enemies scattered throughout this expansion are no joke either. They're relentless, weird, and occasionally terrifying. One moment I was admiring the scenery, the next I was getting ambushed by some unholy abomination I couldn't even describe if I tried. It's classic Elden Ring chaos, and I love it. Fallout London. Some people were quick to dismiss Fallout London just because it's a fan-made project. There's this unfair assumption that because it's not officially from Bethesda, it can't possibly be as good as a real Fallout game. And to be fair, fan projects can be hit or miss, but Fallout is seriously impressive. The team behind it went above and beyond, creating new factions, storylines, weapons, and even unique creatures inspired by British folklore. They've poured so much creativity into it that it really does feel like a genuine part of the Fallout world. It's set in a post-apocalyptic version of London, obviously, which is so refreshing for a Fallout game. We've spent so much time in the United States, it's just a whole new vibe to step into London and see how a totally different society and culture would handle the end of the world. And that's where Fallout London really shines. It brings this fresh, gritty British flavor to the Fallout universe. One of the coolest things about Fallout London is the factions. In classic Fallout style, you've got groups with their own twisted ideals and goals, but here, they're all inspired by British culture and history. There's this one faction that's essentially a throwback to medieval knights, and another one that feels like a punk rebellion straight out of the streets of London. It's so cool to see a Fallout take on British culture, and the factions feel unique and grounded, adding a whole new layer of immersion. Honestly, that's what makes Fallout London so exciting. It's different in the best ways, and it's exactly what the series needed. Sniper Elite Resistance. Set against the gritty backdrop of World War II, it throws you into the chaos of an occupied territory where stealth and strategy are your best friends. The heart of the gameplay is sniping. But it's not just about lining up the perfect shot. It's about thinking ahead, reading the environment, and understanding how to use it to your advantage. The maps are vast and filled with opportunities for creative problem solving. Whether it's setting up traps or finding hidden vantage points, the game rewards exploration and clever thinking. It's the kind of game where you feel like every choice matters and every shot counts. One of the standout features is how much freedom it gives you. The game doesn't hold your hand or shove you down a single path. Instead, it drops you into these large, open areas and lets you figure out how to handle the mission. If you prefer sneaking around like a ghost, avoiding confrontation, the game fully supports that. If you want to go loud and make your presence known, that's an option too, though it's definitely more challenging. The balance between stealth and action keeps things exciting. The resistance element adds a unique twist. It's not just you against the enemy. There's a sense of being part of something bigger. You're not just completing objectives for personal gain, but striking a blow for a larger cause. This adds an extra layer of immersion and makes every small victory feel like it has a purpose. There's a strong emphasis on teamwork, even if you're playing solo. Final Fantasy XV. This game definitely got its fair share of criticism when it first launched, but honestly, it's such a gem once you dig into it. A lot of the hate stemmed from expectations, especially from longtime fans of the Final Fantasy series. People wanted it to be a certain way, and when it turned out to be a bit different, it threw everyone off. One of the big controversies was about the story and how parts of it felt, well, incomplete. A lot of fans felt like there were pieces missing, and to be fair, they're kind of right. Square Enix did add DLCs later to fill in some of the gaps, which helped a lot, but I get why people were frustrated. And then there's the combat system, which definitely divided people. It's way more action-oriented than older Final Fantasy games, which threw some fans off. Instead of the traditional turn-based style, you're zipping around the battlefield, warping in and out of combat, and timing your attacks in real time. Personally, I think it's a blast. It feels fast, intense, and once you get the hang of it, there's a real flow to the battles that's so satisfying. Plus, you get to use all these cool weapons and powers, and switching between them mid-fight keeps things exciting. I get that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it brings a fresh energy to the series, and if you go in with an open mind, it's a lot of fun. Final Fantasy XV gives you this huge, open world to explore, and it's stunning. You're cruising around in your car, the regalia, discovering gorgeous landscapes, stopping at outposts, and finding hidden treasures along the way. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Honestly, this game is one of the most fun entries in the whole Assassin's Creed series. I feel like it doesn't get talked about as much as it should, but the second you start running around Victorian London as Jacob or Evie Fry, you realize just how much of a blast it is. Syndicate nails the feel of 1860s London in a way that's just incredible. You've got the foggy streets, the towering landmarks like Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and that gritty industrial vibe where factories are pumping smoke into the sky. The attention to detail is nuts. You can literally ride horse-drawn carriages through the city or scale the rooftops and just take in the view. It really makes you feel like you've been dropped right into that time period. And the fact that you get to switch between two protagonists, that was such a smart move. Jacob and Evie have totally different vibes, and it keeps things fresh. Jacob's all about getting his hands dirty and brawling with enemies, while Evie's more of a stealthy, strategic assassin. I loved switching between them, depending on the mission, or how I felt like playing. And the sibling dynamic between them is just great. The combat in Syndicate feels super smooth too. It's fast, it's brutal, and it's a lot of fun, especially when you're just diving into a group of enemies and throwing punches. Plus, the new grappling hook, total game changer. 1 second you're on the street, the next you're ziplining across rooftops like Batman. It's the most fun I've had with movement in an AC game for sure. At the end of the day, this game is just fun. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. This game takes everything you might expect from a grounded medieval experience and deepens it into something uniquely authentic and immersive. It's not about fantasy or larger-than-life legends. It's about the grit, struggle, and everyday decisions that define life in a time where survival often hinged on skill, wit, and understanding the world around you. The game focuses on realism in a way that feels deliberate and unapologetic. Combat isn't about swinging wildly or relying on flashy moves. It's technical, calculated, and it demands a level of precision that reflects the era it's portraying. Every strike, block, or dodge feels like a decision, a moment where patience and preparation matter as much as raw skill. Weapons and armor don't just look accurate, they function as part of a system that rewards study and strategy over brute force. Villages and towns aren't just backdrops. They feel alive with routines, struggles, and histories that you can choose to engage with or observe from the sidelines. Every location feels purposeful, every interaction meaningful in shaping your path. The survival elements remain a cornerstone of the experience. Keeping track of your health, hunger, and stamina is a constant reminder that this isn't a world designed to cater to you. Your equipment needs maintenance, your skills need refining, and your choices carry consequences that ripple beyond the immediate moment. There's a tangible sense of effort in everything you do. Biomutant. Picture this, a post-apocalyptic open world, but it's not bleak and gray. Nope, Biomutant flips the script, throwing you into this lush, colorful environment that's teeming with life, strange creatures, and a real sense of wonder. You play as this adorable, yet totally fierce, mutant critter who's out there saving, or maybe even reshaping, the world. And every choice you make has an impact. One of the coolest things about Biomutant is the customization. Right from the start, you're in charge of creating your little mutant warrior. The game has this whole DNA slider system, where you can adjust your character's appearance and abilities, so you could end up with a tiny, super intelligent creature, or a big, tough warrior. And as you play, the choices just keep coming. You'll be picking abilities, powers, and weapons that totally change up your playstyle. I mean, you're out here in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, wielding crazy cool weapons and mutant powers that make you feel like a total hero, or anti-hero, depending on how you play it. The combat is another big highlight. It's a mix of martial arts, gunplay, and mutant abilities, which gives it this flow that's just so fun. 1 minute you're dodging around, pulling off crazy combos, and the next, you're launching mutant powers to take down enemies in style. And since the world is filled with wacky enemies, the combat is always interesting and varied. The Surge 2. I feel like it doesn't get enough credit, but I had such a good time with it. If you're into that whole Souls-like experience, but with a sci-fi twist, this game is exactly what you need. It takes that punishing, tactical combat formula and throws it into this futuristic, dystopian world, which is a super cool setting for this kind of gameplay. The thing that really hooked me was the combat. It's brutal, but in the best way. You're not just hacking and slashing mindlessly. You actually have to target specific limbs, which adds a whole new layer of strategy. I loved figuring out which part of an enemy I wanted to focus on. Do I go for the unarmored areas for an easy kill? Or do I try to chop off a limb to get some sweet gear? Every fight felt like a puzzle, and I never got tired of that. Jericho City has this gritty industrial feel to it. The world building is solid. There's this mix of high-tech and complete chaos, and as you explore, you find out more about what went wrong in this messed-up future. The city itself is pretty open, with tons of shortcuts and hidden paths, which made exploring feel rewarding. Plus, the verticality of the levels was cool. You're not just walking through corridors. You're jumping, climbing, and finding secret areas that connect back in smart ways. It had that same feeling as Dark Souls, in how the world loops back on itself. The story is pretty interesting too. You're kind of dropped into this mess without much context, and as you play, you slowly piece together what happened in Jericho City.